Hope. I am the chair of this committee today, representing the Western Ward in Weymouth. My vice chair is Councillor Andrew Starr. Welcome everyone to the Place and Resources Overview Committee on Thursday the 9th of July. Very warm one out there today. And we are going to start with item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence, please, Anthony.
Cough. We've received no apologies for absence.
Thank you very much. And to note that Councillor Sherry Jesperson is joining us online. Item 2, minutes at the last meeting. Are we happy to accept them, proposed by myself and seconded by Councillor Andrew Starr? Yep, thank you very much. Item 3, declarations of interest. Again, we've had none pre-notified. If any members do discover a declaration as we go through the course of this meeting, you are free to declare it at that point. Moving forward, item 4 on the agenda today is public participation, and we do have one question. Anthony?
The question has been received and responded to in writing and will be published alongside the minutes.
Thank you very much. And again, just as always, a reminder to the public that may be watching this meeting, we do welcome questions to this committee, as every meeting does here at Dorset Council, and you're welcome to submit those in writing or attend to ask your question. Moving forward, item 5 on the agenda is questions from councillors, and there have been no questions submitted, which moves us forward to the first item on the agenda, item 6, which is the public bus and community transport transformation outline business case recommendations. And I will pass over to Owen Clark, the strategic policy team manager, to introduce. And then, sorry, Councillor Andrews, did you want to come in first? Yeah, so I'll hand over first of all to Councillor John Andrews.
Thank you very much, Chair. Councillor John Andrews, member for Place, Cabinet member for Place Services, Ward member for Sherborne East. Before handing it over to officers, I want to make one important point. Today is not about making decisions. The report before you is an outline business case designed to explore the options available to us. No decisions have been made on the preferred option, and no decisions are being sought from this committee today. What we're asking for is your challenge and feedback. Transport is one of the issues residents raised with us most often. We know there are significant pressures across buses, community transport and specialist transport services, but there are also opportunities to think differently about how we meet the needs of our communities in the future. The purpose of today's discussion is therefore to help us shape the next stage of work. We want to understand whether the options identified feel like the right ones to take forward for a full business case. So I would encourage members to engage openly with the discussion and provide clear recommendations on how this programme should be developed over the coming months. With that, I'll hand over to Owen, who will take us through the presentation. Thank you. Sorry, it's me.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Chair. I thank you all for the opportunity to present the outline business case discussing options for improving buses and community transport in Dorset. I'm Owen Clark, and I'm the Strategic and Policy Team Manager within the Highways, Engineering and Transport Services. I just briefly wanted to start on our approach to this work. The outline business case has been developed using a true One Council approach. It's been developed through the Transformation Office Beacon Team model, which has brought together transformation leads and subject matter experts from adults, children's, communities, and economy and environment. And I'm joined by several colleagues online today to reflect this joined-up approach. This has been critical in our understanding of how we can solve these long-standing problems and challenges by working together across services. I'm going to keep this introduction very brief and focus on 3 key things: the case for change, the vision for what we want and are trying to achieve, and the key discussion points we'd like you to consider. But before we talk about solutions, it's important to understand why change is needed. Dorset has a transport system that has evolved over many years, with buses, community transport, and home-to-school transport, and adult social care transport largely planned and managed separately. Each service works hard to meet its own objectives and statutory requirements, but the overall system is fragmented and increasingly expensive to operate. The challenge isn't simply where we are today, it's where we're heading and the future we want for Dorset. Over the coming years, we expect continued pressures on our transport system, particularly from an ageing population and reforms to send. At the same time, residents increasingly expect services that are flexible, connected, and easy to access, regardless of where they live. Yet the way we organise transport has changed very little. The outline business case looks at opportunities that will make better use of our vehicle capacity, coordinate similar journeys more effectively, and simplify arrangements for residents, reducing reliance on high-cost individual transport solutions. While the Council's investment in transport has been increasing in recent years, there is still a need to strengthen accessibility, independence, and flexibility across Dorset's communities to meet evolving needs. If we continue with our current approaches, demand and financial pressures are expected to increase. But it's also important that we understand this isn't simply about transport. This is linked to the Council's wider ambitions around communities for all, community-led service design, age-friendly Dorset, making better partnerships across the public sector with organisations like the NHS, and making the best use of public resources across Dorset. So the question really is, how do we create a transport system that can meet future demand, improve outcomes for our residents, and remain financially sustainable in the long term? And that's what the vision and the options in this outline business case are designed to address. So what would a better future look like? The key finding from the outline business case is that this is not a bus problem or a community transport problem or a send transport problem. It's a system problem, one which requires a broader set of changes to be made together. The vision is a single joined-up transport system that's designed around our people and places. That means not separate budgets, not separate services, but a coordinated system designed around everyday journeys. So in that context, the right solution isn't just more buses or expanding community transport or changing our policies. Instead, the approach being proposed is to bring everything together and manage it as one system. In practice, that means shared vehicles, coordinated services, simpler bookings for residents, and it means making better use of the vehicles that we have, the technology and the data. This approach includes developing our core bus network to provide the backbone of services across Dorset, community and flexible transport filling in the gaps, specialist transport used where it's genuinely needed, and everything planned as one system. For our residents, it's about experience and making those everyday journeys easier. It means being able to get where you need to go more easily, particularly important in our rural areas, having more choice in how you travel, being less dependent on single fixed arrangements. It means better connections, greater independence, and for rural communities, a system that works locally. Importantly, it means across Dorset, better access to jobs, healthcare, education, and community life. This more integrated approach helps us to improve outcomes for residents, get better value, and build a model that is capable of responding to Dorset's future needs rather than reacting to pressures as they arise. So the outline business case considers three possible futures. But I think it's important to be clear that I don't consider doing nothing to be a realistic option. If we stand still, the system will become more expensive and less sustainable over time. So the real discussion is between two levels of change. The first is the integrated service improvement model. This is where more incremental improvements are made that build on what we have today and improves how services work together. We would strengthen coordination, improve customer experience, and make better use of technology, and expand successful initiatives to improve connections between services. But fundamentally, most services will continue to operate within their existing structures, but we improve the system around them. The second is the fully integrated transport system. This is a more ambitious option. Rather than improving individual services, it seeks to redesign the whole transport system around residents and communities. Public buses, community transport, flexible transport, home-to-school transport, and adult social care transport, and potentially partner services, increasingly planned as one coordinated network. The focus shifts from managing separate services to managing people's journeys. In simple terms, we're changing the system itself. Both of these options are considered viable. The key difference is the balance between ambition and speed of change, delivery risk and complexity, and the level of long-term benefit. To close, this programme is about moving from a system that is fragmented, reactive and costly to one that is joined up, flexible and built around residents' needs. The outline business case in front of you today is just the starting point. What we need from you today is your input to shape how we turn that into something real. And with that, I'll hand back to the chair and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I should have said during the introduction, members, what I propose to do on every item is let non-committee members first speak, and then we'll have a discussion and a debate as committee members before moving forward to that recommendation. So with that, is there any non-members of the committee that wishes to speak? Councillor Bowden.
Hi, it's Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Charmouth. Don't worry. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, and my instinct, I'm not able to vote, but my instinct would definitely be for the more ambitious. Is it not working? No, okay. Sorry. Yeah, so, is it working? It's working. Okay. So, yeah, I don't get to vote, but my instinct would be very much to go for the more ambitious full integration. There are, you'll know that Lyme Regis Town Council used to run a town bus service based on the Charmouth School's former school contract. So the minibus used to run around Lyme so that it wasn't just sitting in a lay-by all day. That obviously changed when the contract changed, and Lyme Town Council is fortunate in having enough income that it can actually run its own town bus service now, which is, they bought the minibus and volunteers drive around. It's only 3 days a week instead of 5, but, you know, there's still something. Recently we've had the Bridport to West Bay community bus service that's been proven to be very successful, and the night bus, the new night bus service between Bridport and Lyme, but it's operated by First. So when the last bus goes back to Weymouth, there are a lot of young people from Weymouth who are coming to Lyme and Bridport to use this night bus service, and the young people in particular have been telling us that they're really excited that this service is there. So I think the idea of using the services that are currently fragmented and run by different departments, looking at it overall to kind of also working with community bus services to link in to provide what people are telling us they would like us to provide is a no-brainer as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next to speak, I've got online Councillor Carol Jones.
Thank you very much, Chair. I represent Sturminster Newton, which is incredibly rural, as is much of North Dorset. Now, the community schemes that we have very much have disappeared. The Shaftesbury car scheme, that's gone. in Sturminster Newton, it's really difficult even just to get to a hospital or to any type of medical appointment for somebody without rural as is much of North. Sorry, what's happening? Not sure what's happening there. So I think that what we have to do is we've got to really delve into how we could fund better the community side of transport. One of the moves with the NHS is to really drive a lot more for older people in terms of social inclusion, but these people very often can't get to, whether it's a hub or a hall or whatever. So how exactly are we going to deal with the community transport aspect, because the main services don't cover these areas and we're reliant on community transport, but we can't get the volunteers and there isn't enough funding to deal with it. So I don't know how you're going to fill that gap. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Owen, have you got any response to that?
The outline business case identifies many of those challenges which Carol has just described around the fragility of the funding that they receive, the reliance on volunteer drivers, and what we want to look through as part of this work is how do we enable the community transport sector to grow and strive so that it can fill more of those gaps within our rural communities in particular.
Thank you, Owen. Next to speak, I've got Councillor Alex Brenton online also.
Thank you. It all sounds terribly exciting, and I don't think anyone can object to improving our transport system. But this does mean that one would actually have to virtually take control of some of the existing commercial bus services to make them join up. And I wonder how we stand, legally with that. Do we have the powers to make them do things? The other side of it is the challenge with community bus schemes and such like, which do exist where you have volunteer drivers, but actually, because they charge per mile, and it's 45 pence or 50 pence, it might have even gone up from 50 pence a mile now, a trip to, say, Bournemouth Eye Hospital from my ward is actually more expensive than hiring a commercial taxi. So, this is not particularly helpful. So how are we going to help with car volunteers? And when it comes down to community minibuses and such like, in not just in my ward, but further west in some of those villages, the problem is there's not enough volunteer drivers for the minibuses, and they, because of the regulations and passing their tests. So are we going to set up a whole system of encouraging, driving, instructing minibus drivers so that we can actually increase the pool of volunteers? There were the two things that came out of this for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alex. Owen, have you got any points on those comments made from Councillor Brenton?
The existing model we have with commercial bus operators is an enhanced partnership model, which means working very closely with commercial organisations, but we do have the community transport sector represented on that by our biggest community transport operator, which is Dorset Community Transport. So it's very much about working together under the current model, but there are new models that can be looked at, which has been enabled by the Bus Services Act, which came into force this year. So it can be something that we look at in the future as to what is the best model for Dorset going forward in terms of control and management of those public bus routes.
Thank you very much.
Can I?
Oh, sorry, Alex, did you want to come back?
Can I come back on that just briefly? How are we going to deal with the fact that commercial bus companies, when asked to put on a service, they always say, well, there's no demand there, and you don't get any demand unless the bus is there, and if you don't have a bus there, then there isn't any demand, or people don't make a fuss about it. And it's agreed, generally speaking, that a new bus route tends to take more than a year to develop regular customers to make it viable. So are we going to be subsidising the bus companies for the first year? That's just something to be thought about. Thank you.
Any further points there, Owen? Or
no, again, Alex is raising really clear points there, and is exactly as she described. It takes many years to build up the demand for a new bus service or community route, and they need to be funded over a longer period so that we can get them on a sustainable footing. It doesn't mean on a commercial basis, because in a rural county, there's very few opportunities for service to operate commercially, but to operate at a level where we feel we're getting a value from that service and that the social economic benefits of those services can be understood.
Thank you very much. And I think it's probably worth pointing out, something that comes up at these committee meetings quite often is we don't get fair funding for public transport here in Dorset. And only this week I did see that Edward Morello was speaking in the House to try and push that subject and champion it, as well as I know our other MPs are doing also. So I think they're fair points by Councillor Brenton. We do need to look at additional funding to support and grow these bus routes. And as part of this review, we may be able to release funds internally by better use of transport, but also we need to continue lobbying government to get fairer funding into Dorset. Next to speak, we have Councillor Jane Somper.
Thanks, Chairman. Obviously, one is always going to welcome a joined up method of working, and particularly, obviously, representing a rural area, the lack of those buses here is very apparent, and in fact in the recent CQC inspection for adult services, it was one of the areas that was spoken about as being a real issue, is that access to services in rural areas which is hindered by the lack of transport. So anything that we can see that's going to improve that for our residents is going to be extremely welcome, recognising that requires funding. So understanding how that will work is going to be really important. I see, and I'm sure conversations are being had with Wiltshire Connect, our neighbouring council, where I see some of their buses actually here in the north from time to time. So they presumably cross over into other areas. So obviously learning from other areas where they appear to be working, where they have very shiny, new looking community vehicles is clearly the way forward, and I'm sure you're having those conversations. I know my residents will absolutely be cheering if there is this improved access that works for them, that enables them to get to appointments, medical appointments, shopping, socializing. The other area around social isolation is real. We know that. So being able to get out and about is vital. So that will all come down to funding, but I've really welcomed this joined up approach. It makes a lot of sense. So look forward to hearing how this is going to develop.
Okay, thank you very much. We now move forward into the committee. First to speak from the committee online, Councillor Sherry Jesperson, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Am I online? Yes, somebody nod so that I know that I'm there. Good, thank you. I really welcome this report. I'm very, very pleased to see it. Owen knows that I have been eagerly anticipating, and there have been several recent meetings when he's told me just to hold my horses and wait because a report was coming, so I'm extremely pleased to see it. And it seems to me it's a very good piece of work. The case for this level of change is very well made, and I think the complexity and the depth of the problem, which our poor transport system causes right across the board for this council, is very well set out. It shows a very clear understanding of the issues that this report and this piece of work has to address. So that's very, very encouraging. Obviously, I would like to say that my absolute preference would be that we should go for the more ambitious option. I know it's hard and there will never be enough money, but as I say, there never will be enough money. So the fact that there's not enough money seems to be not a reason for doing the lesser option. If we really want to do this properly, then maybe we will find the money. I also like the fact that that this report is brave enough to suggest that this is a 10-year programme, because that's the length of time that something like this will take to achieve. And I think that's extremely helpful to actually set it out that that's the timescale we're talking about here. So it's really a good report. It's important that we do the ambitious thing. The other thing on funding is, it occurs to me that with a really ambitious plan, that might mean that we are better able to secure central funding, because as has already been commented on, we're very, very badly underfunded in Dorset, and this might help us get better funding. So yes, so I completely support this report. I think it's the right direction. I would like us to be ambitious and brave, and the time is now. It can't wait any longer to grasp this rather tricky nettle. There are a couple of comments I would make about the report itself, not just the things that I've spotted. So I realise that this report is about bus and community service, transport services, but there's no mention of train services. I know that that's not part of what this report is looking to address, but there's no mention of linking our services in with the train stations. Now, train stations in Gillingham, for example, are used by local school children to get to nearby schools when they go to schools out of county and so on. So it is quite important that we remember that the train stations are key hubs, transport hubs, that we need to make sure that our transport network, whatever we put in place, links in very, very robustly with the train network. Then more people might be able to use the train network to get to work and to get to college in Yeovil and so forth from the north. So I would like to see that made more explicit in this report. And the other small point, when you're setting out the economic impact, which you're absolutely right is central to this, and that this is a really important factor in all of this, but there's no mention explicitly of town centre regeneration. Now, town centre regeneration is really central to our economic recovery strategy that we passed some months ago. I expect you're going to tell me that it's implicit that the transport network will contribute to town centre recovery. I'd quite like to see it made explicit, because then we will remember to consider the impact of transport on our evening and nighttime economy in some of our smaller towns, on work and on getting young people who quite often work in the hospitality sector, hospitality and retail, which are low paid, and it's quite difficult for those young people to get to work in the town centres. So could we make town centre recovery explicit in this report as part of the economic case that we're making? Other than that, I very much welcome this report. I would like us to go for the ambitious option, and you know, it's a good report and I'm pleased to see it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there was two main questions, Owen, if you were able to sort of answer, and that was around the connectivity of those transport hubs, train stations, and support for the economic development and recovery.
They're both good points, and we can obviously pick those up as the work progresses. But yeah, certainly around interchange, making an integrated public transport network work effectively, it's critical that we have timetables coordinated so that buses meet trains, and that we make it as easy as possible for people to make those joined up journeys.
Thank you very much. Next to speak, Councillor David Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, Charlotte St Mary Ward, Dorset Council, and also Dorset Town Council. This particular one I'd like to pick on regarding, thank you, Councillor Jefferson, for mentioning half of it, what I wanted to say, the train aspect of regarding the link-up, and also the coach companies. You know, I'm just thinking about the fact that we've actually got a valid point where the fact that we have a national link with London and things like that coming here in various parts of the country, but I don't actually hear the integration with regarding coach companies as well, or transport companies. So it's all transport companies we're really looking at to actually get a link. And I know we touched on this over the last year, every time we've actually talked about this, so it is there. The rollout details, that's the second question, if you don't mind. The rollout details, yes, you've been working incredibly hard, and I welcome this report. I think it's absolutely fantastic at long last. We're actually on top of it. But it's the rollout details that is actually going to be engaging the public to make sure everybody knows what's going on. I think it would be just very beneficial for the parish councils and the people of Dorset and outside to know what's actually going on in Dorset so they can actually be part of it. And when it actually comes on board, you're looking for the customer aspect to join it. If they're involved, they know about it and actually join to give you your customers that you need on that one there. The other side of the thing I was looking at was regarding cost, the possible cost and providers, as in the bus passes we give to OAPs and this, that, and the other. We use also community funding from various parish councils, as in S106 money, to actually create community buses. Is there a possibility of you linking into the parish council's funding to actually help as well? Because at the end of the day, if you're asking for it to be providing a service, it could actually help you beneficially with the funding. And finally, as well, as I said with the second comment, about the ease of contact, so we know what's going on. Is there a designated website? Do we have an affiliated team so they've got ease of contact? And is it well publicised so people actually understand what is going on and actually be part of it and welcome it? But apart from that, thank you very much for an outstanding report.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. So two additional points there. We've covered the transport hubs already, including trains and coaches. So there was two around publicising the connectivity, and the other one is funding from towns and parishes. Owen, over to you.
Sorry, my apologies.
So on funding, that is part of the next stage, is to look at in detail at different sources of funding. So we will take that point on board. I know other members have made that in other committees as well about working with parishes. And I think there's a really important piece of work there to do around understanding those communities' needs and building these services up from the bottom rather than from the top. In terms of engagement, we're not doing formal consultation at this stage or through the business case development stage, but that will follow the full business case going to Cabinet. So there will be a level of public engagement and consultation post full business case. But we will be engaging with key stakeholders over the following months. So, you know, our bus and train operators, our community transport operators, but also town and parish councils.
Councillor Taylor, you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you. I welcome that most. It's wonderful news on that one there. But the thing about Dorset and the thing about the people, they like to know what's going on. They really do. So they can actually be part of it. And I feel they are the taxpayers in a lot of this as well. So therefore, it's to actually roll it out and actually just give little nibbles out, just a bit of publicity to make sure they actually understand what's actually happening. Because then they can feel part of the ride, as we say. I know it's a bit of a pun, but part of the ride to say, going forward, so that actually when it actually comes forward to it, they actually feel engaged and actually assist it and start being paying customers.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Councillor Simon Gibson.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Councillor Simon Gibson, representing Verwood. I think this is an excellent report, one of the more joined up reports we've seen on public transport for quite some time, so thank you very much for it. And I think Sherry Jesperson's point about using this as a document to go to government to say we really are taking integrated public transport seriously in Dorset, it's time now for you to fund that, is a really important thing, because I feel we've had decent plans in the past, and yet when we go to government, we haven't yet really secured I think what we all feel is our fair share. And I think that's relevant because when we're asked in the business case what level of ambition we want to have, it's hugely easy for us as councillors to say, be as ambitious as you possibly can be, better buses for all, let's go do it as soon as we possibly can. But I think we must also learn the lessons of the past and be realistic and cautious, because when we make great pronouncements in this chamber about what we want to do for public transport, if we then can't fund it, if all we've done is raise the expectation levels beyond what we can deliver, and it frustrates the life out of the public, because I don't think you'd knock on many doors and find people say the bus service is adequate, it's not a priority. So I think whilst I really do want to be part of the side that encourages us to be as ambitious as possible, I think we need to be very, very clear about, firstly, the timescales, but also where the money might come from. Because the report talks very clearly about investment at the start will be needed, etc. Absolutely, obviously the case. It obviously, because it's an outline business case at the minute, hasn't set out really where that would come from. So as this progresses, I think being really clear about what ambition can be achieved depending on what funding can be achieved is critical, because what I don't want to do is people think that Dorset Council can just do this, because the sort of figures we're talking about are huge. But there's one point that hasn't been raised that I wanted to just talk about, which was the focus throughout about SEND travel. I think I'm really pleased to see this. We know what's happening to the budget on SEND travel, and I think in particular when it talks about the business case for the most ambitious tier of whatever it is, the most ambitious tier, it talks about maximum use of shared journeys and assets. And I think, for me, that's one of the most key lines in the entire report, because at the minute we are spending so much money on bespoke journeys that is putting not just our public transport funding at risk, it's putting the whole council's funding for services generally at risk. And I think if this business case went even some way towards trying to get those costs under control, that in itself would be a grand achievement. If it happens to deliver better buses as well, then it's an additional achievement again. So I'm really excited about what I see. It's just that note of caution about expectation management, because what's on the page is terrific. Well done.
Thank you, Councillor Gibson, and I'm glad you picked up on that point of SEND, because I think we have focused so far on this debate very much on public transport and buses, but this is an integrated plan, and I think the success of the other sides of the plan are very much if we can get that spending under control with the SEND provision, and it very much goes hand in hand, so I'm glad you steered the conversation that way. Next, I have to speak Councillor Tarr.
Oh, thank you. I'd like to support what was just being said about SEND transport, and also the point about trains. Councillor Jesperson made some very good points. The questions have been answered. But I travel a lot by train in Dorset. It seems the obvious thing to integrate into the transport system. It is not mentioned, as far as I can see, once in the entire report, that you can link into stations. I travel generally on empty trains. There are trains from 6 a.m. till midnight going to Weymouth from Dorchester. People all get out. The last few people get out at Dorchester. I usually travel with one other person on a 400-seat train. That could be changed. There's all this traffic on the roads, all the parking which has to be provided in Dorchester, which takes ages to find. People coming to meetings here late because they can't find a parking place. They could come on the train. It takes me 15 minutes from Dorchester Station to Weymouth Station. It takes about half an hour or 40 minutes on the bus, but it stops everywhere. And then you have to walk quite a long way. So trains are vital to the whole scheme. And so I just want to emphasise that. You've answered the question, but I think it should be a section in the report, how we integrate with trains. And the point that's just been made to me by another member is about cycling. a lot of the kids, especially on Send, are perfectly healthy, lively kids in their teens who like cycling. And if you take the example of Wool Station, for example, there is a cycleway all the way to the old school there when it was a big school, a safe route from the station to that school. And I'm sure that there are taxis going there from Dorset and things, which are quite unnecessary. So I think trains should be a vital part of the whole report. And empty trains travelling up and down railway lines is something we should do something about. When I worked at County Hall 52 years ago, nearly everybody from Weymouth came on a train to one of the stations here and walked to County Hall. And somehow we all got too unfit to do that now. We need a car outside the door and drive right into the car park here. So that's railways cycling. The last point I'd like to make is on page 109, beginning of page 1010, it says that parking schemes in towns, there is a section here which covers it. It says we're allowed to use the money to meet the costs of public transport services, funding highway or road improvement projects, and supporting environmental projects. Now, there is a report which people might like to look up. It's by the AA. It's about parking income by councils in England, and we are one of the lowest collectors of parking fees in England. I live in a street which is heavily oversubscribed with people who come into Dorchester to work, haven't got anywhere to park, so they park in the street. Rarely park the car anywhere near the house. It's really annoying. It really annoys all the residents there. We would be thrilled to bits to be able to pay an annual sum to allow us to use our street for our parking. And that should people come for 3 weeks holiday in Mallorca. They tell me, I chat to them sometimes, I'm going to Mallorca for 3 weeks, I'm having a holiday. I'm flying from Heathrow and I'm leaving my car here for 3 weeks. And they do that right across from the bypass right through to Dorchester South Station.
Yeah, Councillor Tarr, I'm not sure what relevance that parking has on this policy and plan, so... Okay, I think, again, those points are, you've made there, we've identified that connectivity, and that's both the trains, the cycling, the coaches, so that's a strong theme that's running through and will form part of our recommendation. Moving on, I've got Councillor Richard Crabb.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for the great report, and I fully endorse it. It's a very, very good report. I would be very much in favour of the fully integrated option, much like everyone else has said. And I think that's definitely the one to go for, and be ambitious and really go for it. And I think Councillor Jesperson is right when she says that it'll also help to obtain funding. Another point I'd like to make is to make proper use of technology. For example, if you're in London, you can use Google Maps and catch buses. You can see what the bus routes are, where they go to, all that kind of thing. And it is joined up. And that technology ought to work for us in Dorset as well. Another point is about making people fully aware across the county of the services that are available. So it must make services sort of seamless across the board if we can. Now in Sherborne, we're going to be running a community transport service with loops around the town. And generally people pay £1 each. And the whole idea is to keep the centre of town accessible. So hopefully that could be considered elsewhere also. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I've got Councillor David Northam.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Northam from Upwey and Broadway Ward, and I'll just mention that today is the 140th anniversary of the opening of Upwey and Broadway Station, and there's a party. To move on. 3 points, a couple of questions in there. Community-led transport, I think, is a really important aspect. I think sometimes we over-elaborate it. I'd really like to see the council working with the parishes to promote good neighbours. Good neighbours can drive cars and have passengers. That's a really good way. We had a car share scheme. I think that's, again, a basis for moving forward, but I think just encouraging people to be good neighbours could really help an awful lot. Points have been made about funding. So can that community-led small-scale stuff be included in the report? Thank you. On funding, I note that Dorset spends 10 times what it gets out of the government grant. That's figures that are in the report somewhere. That shows the lack of funding coming from government. I really hope we can strengthen our case in going back to government. I think this report is an excellent report, and as Councillor Gibson has said, and others, this will really support making that case to government, particularly as we move forward through the devolution steps. Lastly, I would like the full business case to address both the integrated service model and the fully integrated model. I think it's important that we do leave ourselves some room to consider what the least we could do, or what we could do in the most affordable way, as well as the Rolls-Royce, if you like, solution, which is something we should aspire to. And it depends upon a lot of external funding. So I think we should have both the options moving forward. Could you confirm that in the full business case, you'll be addressing both options? Thank you.
Owen, do you just want to respond to those last points?
I think that on the last point, that is what we're looking for the direction of the committee on. So if that's the recommendation of the committee to take forward both options into that full business case and then present those as the detailed funded and deliverable options, how we would achieve that, then that's what we could do.
Thank you very much. I've got no one else on the committee looking to speak. So before we move to a recommendation, I'm just going to offer Councillor Andrews as the Cabinet Holder the option to respond, and then we'll look to form the recommendation.
Thank you very much, Chair. Today's debate has been exactly what we wanted, to highlight the issues that we've got. We know we've got a problem in North Dorset and the far reaches of rural Dorset with public transport per se. Very interesting yesterday, I was listening to a debate in the House of Commons committee rooms, particularly on West Dorset buses, where several of the neighbouring MPs took part as well. And it was a very interesting debate. If you get a chance to listen to it, it was very good. The Minister was there, and I think he was taking real note of what people were saying about rural buses. Interested to hear that rural buses, like in West Dorset, £14 per passenger funding, or per resident funding. In London, it's £42. So that's the disparity we have between rural locations and inner city locations. So we definitely need to do it. And hopefully, the possible new Prime Minister, I don't mean Count Bintbase, I mean the proposed person that's going to be looking after the Labour Party, is a big advocate of public transport. Now, I know he's been inner city rather than rural, but he might take notice if we, as Simon Gibson has said, make sure that we present this to the Department of Transport and Rural Affairs in Parliament. But thank you, Owen, and the rest of the team for a fantastic report. It's been really hard work. I know he's been working across all sections of our council to try and get a consensus and join that thinking. So on that, thank you very much for the debate. It's really good. You have the recommendations or the things that we need to look at before you, Chair. Please pass them on to Owen and the team so we can make sure we look at the overall business case when it comes to that. And hopefully that's time for around about October, November time. It's pretty tight because we've got school holidays and everything coming up. So thank you once again for all your comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. So as we move forward to the recommendation, again, I feel it's not really been muted much in the chamber today, but I think we all do recognise and agree that it's great to see, as Councillor Gibson said, that one thing this paper will be tackling is that send transport costs. And, you know, that's not been overly discussed with the priority of the public transport, because that's what most of the public speak to us as elected members about. But as us, as we see that service, we see the costs, we see the budget impacts, and we see the impacts it has on the full council's budget. Also, with that home transport and daycare transport and everything, the integration is what we need. It's a one council approach, and I think we all very much welcome that here today. Moving that then forward into those recommendations, I feel that the committee can support both A and B, with the added comments of we want this plan to really focus on the connectivity to hubs and transport hubs, whether that be buses, coaches, cycle lanes, schools, however that may be. That is a strong, I felt every member of the committee pretty much touched on that and was strong. We also need to make sure that the work that we do, and as we introduce new routes, that they're well publicised so that we can support them and residents know that they don't exist, which will have the knock-on effect of supporting the economic recovery plan and supporting our high streets that Councillor Jesperson mentioned. And a real emphasis, again, through our Communities for All work of supporting community-led transport, the towns and parishes with their buses, or the car share schemes, or public on boards, that this should just goes now straight through to on boards, that this should just goes now straight through to Cabinet so it can be accelerated. If anybody needs to comment, they're obviously welcome to make those comments at Cabinet. I'm looking at Jack or Owen to see if they feel, or the Cabinet holders see if they've seen anything different, but they're not indicating. So I would say that we should send this straight forward. It's a great report and we need to crack on with it. The sooner we get this work done, the sooner we can see the benefits. Councillor Jesperson, did you want to come back?
Yes, sorry, Matt, that's my mistake, Mr. Chairman. I wasn't clear enough. I didn't mean seeing this report, this initial business case back to committee. I meant when the business case has been considered by Cabinet and then worked up into an action plan, that we will make sure that we will see the next step. So not to see this, absolutely no need at all for us to see this report again. That's done and dusted. It's just to make sure we're kept in the loop as this piece of work is taken forward in the coming months and probably 12 months. That was what I meant. Sorry, thank you.
I'm going to ask Jack Wiltshire just to respond to that, but
Thank you, Chair. I think we're slightly talking at cross purposes on some of these elements. Essentially, what I've heard here is that Owen will be preparing a full business case which will go to Cabinet for approval. What we could then look at post-Cabinet is how that process is implemented over a period of time if it is indeed recommended by Cabinet. The changes here we've already spoken about being potentially a 10-year plan. These are not going to be instantaneous, so the level and detail of the overall strategy to be put forward, I think, would be something that could be supported and reviewed by overview in the future. Yet the full business case, the next stage for that would be Cabinet's approval.
are you happy with that, Councillor Jesperson?
That was exactly what I wanted to hear. That's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Northam, and then we're going to move forward with the vote.
Thank you, Chair. In recommendation part B, it says, and the preferred pace. We've discussed the scale of transformation, but we haven't discussed the pace apart from getting it to Cabinet as soon as possible. It's not clear to me. It's a 10-year plan. I think the pace, it will take time. I think there's lots of things that have been discussed that will be progressing anyway as part of normal business, such as the community-led aspects of the community-led schemes. I don't think we should wait for that. That's something that can continue without the full business case. I hadn't realised that the intention was that this report is written up into a full business case and that goes to Cabinet. Okay, thank you.
I kind of feel that there are obviously elements to this. Whilst this is a 10-year plan, we obviously want to see elements of it delivered as quickly as possible, right? I think based on the comments from Councillor Gibson is obviously the SEM provision. Sooner we can save on the SEND provision, sooner we can invest back into the public transport, which then allows us to remove some more of the SEND provision because the public transport option's there. And he's nodding over there and smiling. So I think I've caught those points. So I think the pace is get the low-hanging fruit, get the priorities, then continue to invest in the bigger projects. And I think that's the message here. And I think that's very welcome news to Councillor Andrews. Okay, so we're going to move forward to that recommendation with those comments. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Taylor, seconded by Councillor Gibson. All those in favour, just show of hands. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Owen, for another great report that is very much linked to previous reports you brought to this committee. It's great to see that joint up approach, which leads us on nicely to the next piece of work, which is also very much dovetailing into this work and other work that we've been discussing here as a committee on highways and public transport, which is item 7, the parking review strategy. I need to remind members here before we go into the introduction that there is an exempt item to this, and should members need to discuss the exempt item, we will need to go into exempt business. So I'm sure we would all want to try and keep this conversation as open and transparent for the public as possible. So unless we really need to, I'd like to stay in public session. But if we need to question anything in the exempt appendix, then we will move into confidential. And I will be seeking clarification before doing that from the monitoring officer or democratic service officer. So yeah, just be careful of the information we go into and just be mindful. Before I ask the officer to introduce, once again, Councillor Andrews, as the cabinet holder, anything you'd like to say first?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Councillor John Andrews, Cabinet Member of Police Services. Keep having to do that. And Sherborne, Councillor for Sherborne East. This report presents Dorset Council's first comprehensive data-led parking review. Data-led because the foresight was from predecessors to put machines in that we could read data from. So thank you very much for that. Our aim is to better understand how our parking network is used across Dorset and how we can improve it further. Today's report notes positive developments already underway. Weymouth Park and Right, its site is being upgraded. We're moving to the latest technology to support our civil enforcement officers, and we're considering upgrading our parking machines so we can serve motorists even better. A working example of the new machine is here today at the back. I know some members have already had a look at it and how it works, and they're invited to see how it works after the presentation. The parking review highlights some real challenges. Serious congestion around a small number of busy town centre and coastal car parks, seasonal pressures, underused parking elsewhere, and the need for improved enforcement and the technology. At the same time, the review identifies significant opportunities to improve traffic flow, air quality, accessibility, economic activity, vibrant town centres, safer parking, and support for public and community transport. I want to be clear, no decisions have been made. This is an exploratory discussion, not a consultation on agreed proposals. As I said, part of the presentation today will be by Freddie Jones, who is one of the manager director of IPS, who are the providers of the new cassette that we can put into the existing machines. That means taking one out and putting one in. No decisions have been made on that yet, but it gives us even more data-led performance that we can look at and real time. So please take a look at the machines after the presentation. With that, I'll hand over to our parking. I'll hand over to Freddie, who's going to quickly take us through a presentation on the IPS frontages that we put in the machines. Thanks very much.
Chairman, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Freddie Jones. I'm Managing Director of IPS in the UK and the Republic of Ireland. Today, I just simply wanted to cover off 3 straightforward points. The current position of the parking equipment provided by IPS to Dorset, a proposal as outlined. That's the next slide, please, Mike. In terms of the upgrade that relates to the current equipment, which is referred to as an MS1, multi-space 1, And then also to talk about an extension option in terms of digital payments, Park Smarter, which is a suite of mobile options to allow more choice for the community in terms of purchasing their parking. So the current position within Dorset is that you have invested in 236 of the multi-space one parking machines, which are pay and display machines. And that was installed during the period of April to July 2023. Now, with these machines, they currently don't have keypads because they're pay and display, which means that you're not able to enter a vehicle's registration details, which is for data capture, but also specifically for enforcement purposes. The proposal as being presented is to upgrade those to the next generation of machines, which is called an MS3. The MS3 is the latest generation of machines, and in terms of an upgrade path, this is simply a straight replacement of the door. So there's no civil works, there's no removal of the machine. It's simply just a straight replacement of a door, because all of the technology sits on the back of that door, and this can be completed with between 40 minutes to an hour per machine, and the machine is operable, so very minimal disruption to the car park and the services that are being provided. It provides both physical and or, again, choice, a digital keypad, and has a high-resolution 10-inch color screen, which is highly configurable. And this allows for a number of things. One, you can include tariff and other public information on the screen as well, reducing cost. It allows for public information as well as different advertisements, if that was appropriate to be provided. But in essence, what it's doing is providing significant strategic choice. The machine is available as a ticketless option, so you therefore reduce the operating cost by providing ticket, and tickets can then be, or receipts, accessed as digital receipts that way. It incorporates also an optical reader, which will allow for future-proofing in relation to coupons, vouchers, permitting, and disabled badges, again, providing a future-proof ecosystem of parking technology. The final element are options around digital payment services. Often people refer to cashless parking as an app. With Park Smarter, it's a suite of mobile options. The text to pay and scan to pay are forms of accessing a browser version, which means that individuals are not required or don't need to download an app in order to use a browser version of it. And that's often helpful where network issues can be challenging. There is also an integrated app as well, which provides the full service. And what is unique about this particular offering is the integration, or technical speak, the interoperability between the machine and the parking app. In other words, a parking session may be initiated at a physical machine, and that transaction is then pushed to the parking app, which allows the user to extend the session that they originated at the machine, which provides significant flexibility. Moreover, for enforcement and policy issues, it means that where you have got policies, for example, no return, that stops individuals gaming the system between a parking app by a separate vendor and the machine, and therefore you enforce your policies from that perspective as well. It also allows the officers within the council to administer the machines easily. So a change in the data management system, because it's cloud-based, means that if you change the tariff from 50p an hour to 60p an hour, that can be done in real time from the data management system to the machine, as well as the parking app at the same time. So it's a fundamental way of improving choice and flexibility for end users, as well as enhancing the efficiency of the service offered by the officers of Dorset Council. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that overview on the machines. Before we go further then, we're going to ask Mike Westwood, Head of Parking Services, to do an overall introduction, and then before we go into committee meeting. Is that correct? Was you expecting that, Mike?
Sorry. I wasn't expecting it, but I can give a quick introduction. Michael Westwood, Parking Service Manager. The review so far, we've started looking at various different ideas and what we can do with parking across Dorset and to improve it. We've crunched millions and millions and millions of lines of data, payment data from everything from our current machines and Just Park to give us the sort of first real insight and data-led approach to reviewing parking across Dorset. We understand that now far more than we ever have done before about how people are using our car parks, which is I found incredibly interesting myself. We often get reports from people to tell me, a car park is empty or a car park is full, and that's a snapshot view of what's going on in that location for 5 minutes or an hour. Using this data has enabled us to look at what's happening in that car park over a period of 18 months, and we now truly understand, where people are choosing to park, how people are choosing to park, and the duration of that parking. That's now feeding into the following steps that we're carrying out through the review. The initial bit that we're doing at the moment, we're looking at how we price those car parks, how we arrange for both on-street and off-street payment for parking, and how we do that, and how we can simplify that for the customer. Then within the report, we talk about the next steps beyond that, which brings in some of the comments that have been made already around things like on-street residence parking. How do we better provide that across Dorset? But as I think we've already mentioned, this is the sort of first steps on that journey. And at the moment, we're just asking you to look at what we're putting forward as suggestions at the moment, to review those and to give us your feedback and thoughts around that. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot there, Mike. I was advised that's what you were doing, so take it up with Anthony over lunch. Okay, right. Unless any other, I know we've got a cohort of officers here today because this has touched us on many things. Unless any other officer wants to add anything else into that introduction, we are going to move forward then, first of all, to non-committee members to speak. Do I have any non-committee members? Yes, Belinda.
Thank you, Chairman. Belinda Borden, Lyme Regis and Charmouth. I welcome this report, and I was lucky enough to welcome Councillor Andrews and Mike Westwood to Lyme Regis and Charmouth yesterday to have a look at our parking issues. Yes, I welcome the idea, for example, of residents possibly being able to have discounts. And also, I'm not sure whether it's saying in here that car park indicator signs would be potentially part of this, so that people driving into town could find out, for example, because what happens in Lyme is everybody wants to come into the centre to try and park in the teeny tiny car parks, and invariably causing a lot of congestion before they then go out and either try and park on the streets, which annoy our residents, or go back up to the big car parks. And in fact, the Town Council runs a park and ride scheme, and because they changed the pricing, it's had the opposite effect, which is it's driving people into town to drop people off before they then go back to the park and ride. So the pricing is interesting, but does it include the possibility of car park indicator signs saying, for example, town centre car parks full, spaces available at Holmbush, Charmouth Road, Park and Ride?
Thank you very much. I'm not. Yeah, Mike's nodding, so I'll ask him to respond.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, we certainly will be looking at the sort of wayfinder signs and how we sign our car parks. I can't stand here and promise that we'll have space by space information, but certainly we need to look at how we direct people to the car parks, get them to the right car parks we want them to park, and indicate in a way where they can find that, encourage them to park in that cheaper parking, that out of town parking, to try and alleviate the congestion in town centres. That's a big part of the plan, really.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Andrews, you wanted to add something also?
Yeah, thanks very much. So thanks for bringing that point up, Councillor Bowden. I always say your name wrong, Bolden. These machines might eventually be able to integrate into the big signs we've got around some of the bigger towns like Dorchester, where you come in and the signs a waste of time. So we might be able to integrate some of this data within that with the spaces in the car parks. Because I've had complaint after complaint that those signs that you come, top of town car park especially, or the sign outside of it, is an absolute waste of space. Because we don't know how many cars have gone in and out of the car parks. So that's something we might be able to do in future with any new real-time information machines.
Perfect. Okay. I've got no other non-committee members wishing to speak, so we're moving to the discussion and debate of committee members. First to speak, I've got Councillor Simon Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Simon Gibson from Verwood. I was involved as the then lead member when we were looking at the last upgrades to the parking machines, and it's amazing how time flies in a way, because I felt really confident at that time, and maybe it was true still, that we were getting really high technology. It was a real leap forward for us in how we were managing car parks, and I am pleased to see what a difference the data collection has made to what we can now understand about our car parks. I supported the upgrades then, and I think it would be consistent to support upgrading it when the opportunity comes now. I like cashless parking options. It's something that I use when I park in most places that I go to. I like having it on my phone. I like not having to return to the car park when invariably I've stayed longer somewhere than I intended to. And we do want people to stay longer in our town centres. We want them to be out there spending money. So anything that makes parking easier, I in general support. Parking is a service that should enable other things, and I think these upgrades would help do that. I do have a quick question before I go on to some other points about the actual parking machines themselves. All of the app usability looks good, but just check, is this a standalone app? So in essence, one bugbear I do have is wherever I go, I seem to have to use a different app, and it just whether it's every car park around my edge of Dorset seems to just use something slightly different. Is this an app that can't integrate with the existing apps? Is it standalone?
This particular app we're looking at today is a standalone app. Potentially in the future, if the National Parking Platform gets off the ground, we could integrate with that. But it's designed to integrate with the machines and the whole parking infrastructure, if you like, to try and make it easy for everyone. So yes, you are right in what you say. If you go to a different town, you might be using a different app to the one we use in Dorset. But it does give people the option to either use the machine, use the app, or completely stay away from online and apps if they want to. But yeah, we'll be looking how we can integrate that going forward, and if it's the right steps to make once what they call the National Parking Platform comes to fruition. At the moment, although it exists, it's not there yet. If it ever does exist, we'll look if that's the right thing for Dorset, and it's the sort of thing we bring back to somewhere like here before we move forward with that.
Councillor Gibson.
Thank you for that. I assumed that would be the case, and I still think, even with that, it would be something worth doing, because I think it's the way parking's going. I think parking habits have changed a lot in recent years. So I feel having modern, up-to-date equipment, especially when you don't have to do the civil work behind it, just if it's a new front, I think that's a very attractive proposal from a disruption point of view. So that's all I'll say on that. I've got a couple of other points on the report about the short and medium and long-term recommendations on other parts of the parking review. The first one in the short-term recommendations about increasing the size of the enforcement team, fully support. I've always argued that if we're going to have a policy, you have to have robust enforcement, and you've got to have enough people to be able to do it. So from my perspective, even if we have to put a bit of investment into enforcement, hugely welcome it. It's got my complete support. One of the bits that I am nervous about in the report, and I know it's only suggested as we could do it, but I want to get my nervousness on record early, is it talks about the possibility of emissions-based discount for parking. I'm personally not in favour of it. I feel that there's already discounts available in certain other parts of the driving world if you choose to have an electric car and stuff like that. If we are to go down the route where we say we can actually discount somebody's parking because of something that they do. I would far sooner give discounts to people that struggle with the costs of parking more generally. Young people coming into town centres for work. I don't think this is ideologically where I would put a discount into parking, and I think it's a distraction to the wider point here. I try not to be ideological in parking. As I said, I think it's a service that is pretty universal. So whilst everything else in the report I can follow the logic of, straight out the gate, I don't like the idea of emissions parking, and I'd love us to get rid of that as soon as we can.
Thank you very much. Moving on to Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, that was one of the points I was going to flag. So, as Councillor Gibbleson said, in relation to lower parking fees for more environmentally friendly cars, we do need to recognise, as someone who's currently, through unfortunate circumstances, car shopping at the moment, you have to be of a certain set of means to be able to afford to do the right thing environmentally, and therefore the people that are working hard, struggling to get by, can't necessarily afford the luxury of having an electric or a hybrid car because of their finances, and therefore I don't think financially persecuting them for not being able to afford to do the right thing is how we encourage people to do the right thing. I'm much more of a fan for the carrot rather than the stick. In terms of the principle of upgrading the machines, completely agree with the points that have been made so far. I just wanted to ask a question, because I know that we operate under some very different legislation to private car park operators, which I'm sure, I can see the nods from across the room, has already garnered me some support over there. But I think a brilliant way of doing parking can actually be demonstrated at Lulworth Cove if you exclude how much they charge, in that when you arrive, you punch in your registration number and you tap your card. And when you're done for the day, you punch your registration number back in and it bills you for the amount of time that you were there. When you speak to high street shops, cafe owners, hospitality, the old classic of someone was just about to buy something or just about to buy another cup of tea and they went, oh, the car parking, and they run out. We've all found ourselves in that situation, particularly tourists who may arrive in, as the portfolio holder has a beautiful town in Sherborne. You may, if you've never been there before, you might not know how long you can spend the day in Sherborne. So you may buy a couple of hours and actually end up wanting 4. Is that something that we will be able to look to facilitate to support local businesses, hospitality and retail?
Mike, do you want to respond to that?
We would really like to operate in the same way as private car parks do, and it's something that we campaign as an industry across the country to be able to do the same things. We're trying to get as close to that as we possibly can with this new idea of being able to perhaps start your payment on a machine, then continue it on an app, or continue it by phoning a number. So we're trying to get to that, because I completely agree with you. Sometimes you do park and you think you're going to stay an hour, but because you're enjoying yourself, you want to stop longer, but you don't want to return to your car and put some more money into the machine or put another ticket on it. So we're exploring the ways in which we can enable that, but within the legal restrictions we've got as operating as a local authority.
Yeah, before I bring Councillor Brown back in, Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, thanks. Legislation dictates that we can't have ANPR entry and exit cameras in our car parks because the government say that, I think it was Mr. Pickles that brought it up, first of all, Eric Pickles, if everybody remembers him, that we trust the private sector, but we don't trust the public sector to administer it properly and keep within GDPR rules on car park and ownership. So at the moment we can't do it. We've been lobbying through Patrol, Parking and Traffic Regulation outside of London organisation, which we are part of, to get that legislation quashed so that we can actually do it. Not all car parks that we own would be able to do it because they have several entry and exit points and are thoroughfares in some cases, but some can. For instance, the Swannery car park in Weymouth could be a prime example where you could have ANPR cameras and you could have exactly what you were saying, Councillor Brown. So we are lobbying. We keep on lobbying, and I'll be lobbying next Tuesday. Cheers.
Councillor Brown, do you want to come back?
Sorry, apologies. So I'm fully aware of that the legislation doesn't allow us to use AMPR, but in the case of Lulworth Cove, you're inputting your registration into the machine, like these ones will have the technical ability to do. If we're going to be collecting that data set, how the Lulworth estate is choosing to deploy that is you check in effectively with your car reg, provide a means of payment to be billed in arrears, and then you check out. And if you don't check out, you get charged, I think, for the whole day, for example, the most amount. So it allows us to facilitate that. Effectively, you start a parking session, but don't have to commit to an end time, but without using AMPR. So is that something we would be able to do with this technology?
Potentially, we can explore how we could enable that. Like I say, we've got to try and work around with our legislation, but it is something that we're trying to explore to try and make that very thing possible, and it's how we make it possible.
Thank you. I think the message has been heard. The next point, because I have an opportunity to raise it again with you, and it won't come as a surprise, probably to either of you, is back in December 2024, the council elected to introduce transaction charges for people that elected to pay via the app, which I think is estimated about £150,000 a year to the Dorset motorists. About 50% of our customers choose to pay that way. You'll be aware of my disgruntlement at that, because my understanding of legislation is that you're not allowed to discriminate people based on the means in which they choose to pay. I understand that there is a technical workaround which a number of councils go between, but will that be something we can consider as part of this marketing review to effectively unify all of the parking options? And if we are going to charge an additional premium for paying on the app, can we at the very least print that on the sign so that members of the public can make an informed decision on if they do choose to pay with the app, they know they're going to be penalised and therefore could elect to pay by card. Because I believe it's unfair, and equally, I believe that if we did the reverse and we said to members of the public that if you choose to pay with cash, and I think we can make a very logical argument, I'm not arguing for it, but we could make a logical argument in cash handling and additional security, that there is additional costs burdened by the council for administering that form of payment, therefore we want to charge extra. Every single member of this council will be jumping up and down about how that discriminates against people that elect not to use a credit card. But when we do it the other way around for people that don't carry cash, i.e. younger people, we all go very quiet.
To be honest, we took note of what you mentioned in the past, and this the one we're potentially getting, I can't say we are yet, but we're looking at, that works alongside the IPS. There is no convenience fee attached to using the app in that case. If we go down that route, great. That charge will disappear. If we don't, then the plan is to upgrade our signs around the Just Park signs, and to add that, ensure that fee is clear and obvious on the signs in every car park. But you can probably guess where my aspiration is to go. But yes, so to answer both those elements, yes, we'll either go one way or the other.
Okay, next to speak, I've got Councillor David Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, Chelmsford Mary Ward, Dorset Council and Dorset Town Council as well. Thank you for letting me offer, and thank you very much for the presentation today. I did have the chance to actually go up there and look at the machines and see what they do. Well impressed. Really interesting stuff to do. My question was actually opened up and hasn't been actually put in here. There is a lot of confidence across Dorset regarding the internet, shall we say, connections with our parking machines and this and the other. And I've asked, could I actually emphasise on this today to say the confidence in people paying on the app, which they try to have huge problems in Dorchester, because when you go to the centre of Dorchester, there is no internet. And also when you go outside various car parks, there isn't any connection. So therefore, I'd like that to be opened up for discussion so their confidence is actually in there for the future of public paying. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so effectively what we're looking at is that confidence that if we go this route, we've got digital connectivity to support it. I don't know if anyone from Parking Services can answer that, or might we want to come out? Mike, you can.
From a machine connectivity point of view, it's not one we suffer with, thankfully. They're pretty good machines that are searching out and hunting for a signal. We are aware there are points around Dorset that is poor reception depending on what your provider is like. Something we do need to do actually better in Dorchester is advertise the fact that there is the town Wi-Fi is available in the car park, so we need to get some signs up. I know exactly why you put in that face. Yeah, it's good enough for doing a transaction on. You wouldn't want to watch a film on it. But it is something that we're exploring to see how we can, where there are areas or weak areas, how can we boost that signal for people, so they can use the app if that's what their choice is. It's a difficult one because everyone's has got a different provider. You go to a different place and there'll be a different signal that you can't get. But we are looking to see what could be done to improve that.
You actually mentioned a very important point, and thank you for that. That's a great explanation on that. And yes, we have a dreadful Wi-Fi. The thing is that the confidence, as well as the fact is when you want to top up your car parking time, which basically you can't. You go into somewhere as in the High Street, in Dorset, South Street, you just can't do it. So you have to go either find a spot to actually interconnection. I'm just wondering whether or not there could actually be a kind of a push from you as the team going towards the internet provider. I know it's a bit wishy-washy, but the fact is of just saying to improve our strength in the town, or the bid, in Dorchester, say so we can actually get the system sorted out, so there is a confidence in Dorchester for parking and data, etc. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Do you want to come back on that point?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that card and cash options are available on all of our machines. And when I was a lad, if I went over, I had to run back to the car park, put some more money in it, or nowadays swipe the card. I know we've moved on from that, and we will do what we can to get internet providers to get a better, phone signal providers to get a better signal, because I understand that a lot of people can't get phone signal. I can on 3. It's brilliant in Dorchester. So I don't know what the rest are doing, but we will make strides to try and do that through our IT people to get a better internet signal.
Thank you very much. Next to speak, I've got Councillor David Northam.
Thank you, David Northam, Upway Broadway in Weymouth. I'm talking about Weymouth mostly, but some of it applies elsewhere. 3 points again. Overnight parking. In Weymouth, it's free, which means that you don't collect any data on the levels of overnight parking. Have you been able to, or are you going to actually do some surveys of overnight parking? Because it's a different customer, both for the entertainment point of view, but we've also got a large number of residents who work away and park their car in the evening after 6 o'clock. That's question 1, overnight parking. Question 2 is, by the way, I welcome the report. I particularly like the way you've split it up into short-term, medium-term, and long-term, and I support those activities in there. In the medium term, you talk about looking at the tariffs, and I was in favour in the working group of common rates across Dorset. I recognise the arguments in the report, which says that's not practical, essentially. I do think that I recognise charging higher rates for visitors is a necessary thing. I think it's particularly then necessary to look and increase the residence schemes. I use MI Permit, which is a really good residence scheme for short-term parking, 3 hours. I'd encourage other people to adopt it as well. But I think we need to do something, otherwise the businesses are being prejudiced by local people not being able to use the car parks in the summer period when they're full of tourists because they're cheaper than the tourist car parks. So I think that needs to be looked at, the overnight parking and the tariffs. And then lastly, I welcome the development of the park and ride sites because ultimately we want to get the cars out of the town centres if we can for all the reasons mentioned in the report. The bus connections links back to our previous conversations, and I think it's worth putting in about the e-bikes and the e-scooters in the areas where there are some trials going on, but we could see that potentially extended to other towns in particular. So really, one question about overnight parking. That's probably all I need answering. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have carried out some surveys of overnight parking, but the intention was to carry out further surveys to understand what's happening in the car parks overnight, particularly when we sort of move into the residents' parking side of the review, because we recognise that that is a big part of our overnight parking is residents parking. So we want to understand where people are parking. You know, is it in front of their house? Is it in the car park? The surveys we've carried out so far, I've been surprised at quite how low some of the overnight parking has been, but it is something that we will continue to do. So yes, we will be looking at that to add to that picture of residents parking.
I'd be interested to see some of that data if you're able to share it. Thank you. And the last bit, so I'd like to us in moving forward to emphasise residents' tariff schemes. I think that's an important aspect. Thank you.
Councillor Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, some of this technology, if we were allowed the GDPR side of things, we could actually, after 6 months, write to somebody and say, you should have a permit, really, because you park X amount of times in there, and it'd be a damn sight cheaper if you didn't, if you pay for a permit. So it's all that kind of like technology, these new machines, be able to give us so that we could actually help residents out by suggesting that, you know, there's a cheaper form of parking. I mean, hopefully the EPR system we're bringing in will be able to, with residents particularly, is put kind of like a monthly charge on the bills that they pay on a normal, because you know, I pay my brown bin bill. Perhaps I'll put my permit on that bill as well, so that I can pay that in a monthly instalment for even the short stay. At the moment, that's impractical for the short stay, but we do it for the long stay or for the maximum permit. But it's a way of residents getting a cheaper method of parking. So.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jesperson online, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Sherry Jesperson, Hillforts and Upper Clarence Ward. I welcome this report. I would like to just make 1 point and 1 suggestion. I want to absolutely support the points that were made earlier about the suggestion that we might have a lower tariff for cars with low emissions. I think that would be discriminatory against people on low incomes and people in lower cost housing and people in social housing, which might involve flats where they have to pay for charging their car on a public tariff. So, and I'm pretty sure it wouldn't get through our equalities impact assessment. So I would like to see that taken out of this report. I think it's inappropriate. Can I make a suggestion going back to this question that comes up in great detail every time we discuss car parking, about how we encourage people to stay for longer in our town centres, which is now that the nature of our town centres has changed, that you're not popping in to the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker and then going home on the bus. You're coming in as a leisure activity. One of the things you could do, and this is an early win, is improve the signage and make it much easier to find the long stay car parks. I go into towns in Dorset that I don't know very well, and it's often really quite hard. And I think, well, I might want to be here for more than 3 hours. I'll go and find the long stay car park. And they are often difficult to identify, or you go into a big car park like the one in Sherborne where it's not obvious which bit of that is the long stay. And when you do get into the long stay car parks, sometimes they're quite uninviting because they were originally thought of as being where trucks and lorries would park. So they're not nearly as inviting or as clean or as well maintained sometimes as the other part, the short stay car park. So that would be a really win-in. Direct people into the long stay car park, then they can pay for longer and they would stay in our town centres and spend some money in our cafes and restaurants. And nothing to do with machines, but I think it would be something to think about. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's noted, Councillor Jesperson, that we need to look at again. I think signage was mentioned, earlier on, so we'll take that on board as well. Where's short stay, where's long stay, and we'll take those comments on board. I don't believe I've got anyone else on the... Councillor Richard Crabb.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Crabb, Sherborne West Ward. I just wanted to say I support all the proposals, but I'm in agreement with others who've said that they do not support emission-based pricing. I think we are not really ready for that yet. Perhaps it's something to do in the future, but I think for now, perhaps that's something we should say we park, as it were. Okay? But yeah, a question about pricing so that we can encourage use better, especially with park and ride. Is that something that's sort of built in to all the plans? Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Andrews, do you want to come back?
Yeah, this is about parking strategy rather than pricing, but yes, we certainly can, because with our demand-led parking, with any new technology, we'll be able to spot price. So, and I'm not talking about the higher spot price, I'm talking about there aren't many people in this car park in the middle of the town. We can bring the price down for that, and I don't know how we're going to communicate that yet to people, but it's an idea that's floating about, and I know they do in other places. So yeah, and I just want to pick up on what Councillor Jesperson said about the condition of the car parks. I've made Mike and the team and our asset manager on car parks fully aware that we need a priority of which car parks are in the worst condition, and we'll do them. We've already done a few, and we've widened the spaces because cars these days are a little bit bigger than what they used to be. You used to be able to get a car in the garage. You can't now, can you? You know, so it's one of those things. So our spaces, when we do redo a car park, reline, will be slightly bigger than what they are now. Am I right to say that, Mike? Yeah. So just thought, as Councillor Jesperson mentioned it, that we are looking at conditions of all car parks. Thank you.
Okay. Any other committee members? Just a few points from myself. So prior to this one, I actually met with the cabinet member and the leader last week to go into some details, some other bits that were concerning me. I tended to agree, to be honest, with the emissions-based penalty. And although we are advertising that if you have a lower emission, you get reduced parking, so that's the benefit rather than the penalisation. I was personally concerned on that. But I did listen to the arguments and the debate that I had with the leader, and the leader is right. We have declared a climate emergency, and we do have to sometimes take these tough decisions. But I do agree that I'm still not swayed on that the discount for the non-polluters or the less polluters is the right way. And I feel that actually, if we can take the alternative route by actually keeping people local, supporting local, shopping local, and we hear it in Weymouth all the time, and Councillor Northern will also. I go to Dorchester because it's cheaper to park. And I'm sure many of you have it in your areas. I'm sure you get it out in Lyme and West Bay with the higher tariffs for the seaside resorts. So if we can really, really support the integration of these new machines that pick up that you are a Dorset Council ratepayer and you get cheaper parking because you're already paying for some of that service through your taxes, I think that will go down very, very well with the public. And many of us in this chamber and across the whole chamber stood on a promise to look after locals on parking. So I think that is a strong message that we support here today. And a personal one really is absolutely, if we can get into the database, and whether it's Dorset and you get a secondary discount if you're still in your town, so if you're in, you know, or something like that, I think that's personally what I'd rather see to reduce emission and travel rather than the discount or discount scheme for lowers, because reality is some of our first-time drivers can't afford anything more than a clapped-out 20-year-old car that's a high polluter. Or even some of our not-so-new drivers, looking at Councillor Brown's face there when we talk about shopping for cars earlier. So that's a personal view. Again, I support signage. Signage, every time we put the prices up, we have to pay to refurbish all the pricing and all that goes away. Again, that's an exercise, it's a cost, it's a resource that we can look at digital promotion of signs, whether that be direct through the machines or as you enter the car park, saying what it is. I think that would be a cost save. And again, reduce waste, reduce environmental impact with someone driving around changing signs. That's what we need. And I do support the challenge by Councillor Brown on, we don't necessarily need ABR. Was it AVR, APR, John? AVMBR, acronyms, we love them. I'm sure that IPS can come up with some software, that a camera that can talk to their machines that say, you book in, you're already a member, you're registered to our app, and as you leave, we book you out and charge you accordingly. And I think pay on exit has been an aspiration for many of us, especially in the market towns, to support our high streets. So that's I think, would be a message back as part of this to say, can we look at something like that still as part of our feedback, personally from myself. Before I come to a summary, is there any other members of the committee that want to come back? Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Brown.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, Chalmers St Mary. I'd just like to point out the Councillor John, regarding that pop-up saying 30p discount parking, I think is an absolutely amazing idea. We have signs going in and out of our towns. As you approach New Weymouth and Dorset, you could just pop up and just say, cheaper parking, 30p an hour, come on in. I think it's great. I think it's a really great idea. That would certainly fill our town centres, absolutely, to understand. And you talked about the argument saying, oh, I go to store shopping because it's cheaper. Well, if we have a pop-up sign saying it's 50 pence an hour or 30 pence an hour for the next 7, what a great idea. Get it on board. Bring in the trade. Fantastic. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
I just wanted, can we put a formal recommendation forward? I think there's a complete agreement around the chamber in relation to the emissions-based charging, that we're not a fan of it, I believe. And no, okay. Well, then maybe a vote would be a good way to resolve that. It also seems that there seems to be quite a bit of agreement to ask the team to investigate pay on exit using the new machines and sort of explore the practicalities and deliverability of that. So I'm happy to put a formal resolution together if you'd like, Chair, or...
Before I come back to that, just a couple of other points, and then if anyone else wants to see. Was that on that environmental... I'm going to park that for, again, using Councillor Crabb's pun there, I'm going to park that for a second, and we're going to come back to that as a topic in a second, because I feel there is going to be some discussion. The other thing I wanted to pick up on personally as well, as Councillor Andrews mentioned, is our residence permits. I think last time I calculated it, and again, that was a year or so ago, I think it works out around 24p a day for a residence permit for a 3-hour permit, slightly more for an all-day permit. And I think part of this policy, we need to emphasise that we need to weigh that to make it truly affordable, because at the moment you can only pay it in sections, some of them, that we need to support with the new ERP system, that residents can actually pay that percentage along with their monthly council tax bill, along with their brown bin. So I think we need to form that actually we need to continue to explore more affordable ways to pay for those permits so residents can fully appreciate them and afford them and benefit from them. And the other thing I wanted to ask personally, and I didn't ask this when I spoke to you, Councillor Andrew, this parking review, and I know its terminology is parking review, but will you be exploring alternative use for our car parks as well? And what I mean by that, I don't mean development, but for many, many years before the LGR, Weymouth Port Borough Council was adamant that the Swannery car park on a Thursday night would have a pop-up cinema and things like that. Never fruitioned, and I have to bring it up because Honorary Alderman Councillor James would be chewing my ear off later on this evening on that. Is that also going to be part of this parking review, the alternative incomes from our car parks?
Certainly can be, Chair. You want to put it in the recommendations, and that's fine. We'll have a look at it. But yeah, I've been to pop-up cinemas in car parks. They happen to be free at the Terrace in Sherborne, but that's a good idea because we don't charge overnight in the car park. So yeah, good.
So before we go to the emissions-based ones, Councillor Tarr wants to come in. Can you use the mic, please, Councillor Tarr?
Just on the point of alternative income from car parks, our French authorities, partner authority, is putting covers over the car parks and putting solar panels in big time, and they're making a lot more money from the solar panels than they are from the parking, and they're using it to heat their swimming pools and stuff. So there's another source of income for car parks.
Councillor Andrews, you were reaching to the mic to respond to that one.
I totally agree, and if we had the finance to do it and the support to do it from central government, then we'd do it. There are some car parks with limitations. Swallowing car park, for instance, I don't know how stable the ground underneath the car park service is. Certainly that wouldn't be any site for development because of the instability of the ground. No, it's an interesting concept, and I'd love to do it. Chargers all over the place, you know, yeah, cheap charging for people. Excellent.
Okay. We're going to now pick up on honing on this emission part. Councillor Brown, did you want to make a proposal just on the emission part, and then we can debate just that element?
Because I'm looking towards Anthony as the clerk of the committee, something along the lines of this committee requests the removal of the proposal of emission-based discounts for car parking charges as part of the review.
So that's what we're looking just to discuss at the moment. I'm not going to call for a seconder yet because I feel that's what the topic Councillor Brown wants sort of dug into. And then then it's up to him whether we can push that forward after the debate and get his seconder. But we're just going to debate that particular point, I feel. Now, I had a couple of hands go up. Councillor Taylor, I've spotted first, then Councillor Northam.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you very much, Councillor Pearson. I totally get it. You know, the fact is like the first-time car owner, the youngster, the family, they cannot afford to come into the town. And when they do as their weekly trip to actually pay to come in, I totally get it. The new cars, the electric cars, this, that, and the other. But the other side of the coin I'm looking at is that these vast cars are coming out of town with 5-litre engines or 10-litre engines and all that sort of thing. And they are pumping out stuff all over the show. And they're like the people carriers. These are big cars, and we've got a lot of them in Dorchester. But going around, you know, the Chelsea tractors, I think they're called in the slogan, but I mean things that there are a lot of them. So therefore, it is a pollution problem we do have, and it is a big one. But I don't know how we can offset it apart from the fact, like, I don't know. It's a very difficult question to ask because the fact it is the question of how many people are coming in that can't afford to come in and are very local. But how many do we get in on these vast cars, these Porsches, these Porsche Cayennes and all that sort of thing? They're coming in. There are vast cars pumping out all sorts of stuff, and they're not healthy for our community. And then the other side of the coin is like the lorries coming in at night and parking in the car parks. Yeah, that's a different thing ultimately outside of this, but we do have a lot in the top of town car park. But I mean, the thing is that it is a point of reference there, but I'm a bit on the edge here because I don't really know where to go. But I mean, that's where I need to balance it out, really. But thank you. Can you ring in?
Councillor Northam.
Thank you, Chair. The report as it currently says that it's going to explore residence tariff and adjust and consider other tiered approaches to tariffs, which I think could include the higher emissions vehicles, usually based upon engine size, but higher emission vehicles being charged more. It could also include a consideration of lower emission vehicles being charged less. I think the more important one is a really good residence tariff or a residence permit scheme, because I think that favours our residents, which I think should be our priority, and the businesses in many respects. I think it's important that when we look at town centre car parks and traffic to them, it is creating atmospheric pollution, noise pollution, and all the other things. And again, this tends to be the bigger vehicles rather than... I declare an interest. I do have an electrical vehicle and a petrol vehicle. The electric vehicle is a lot quieter than the petrol vehicle, to the point, yeah, that's fine. So I think that to reject consideration of them at this stage is wrong. I think we should go forward and consider it as part of the next stage of action, And when we come to decide what the tariffs are that we're going to pay, I'm sure it won't just be an officer decision. I'm sure it will have to come to some form of committee. So what I'd like to suggest is that that's made clear, that it would come back to some form of committee for approval on the revision of those rates. So I'd hope that with what we're commenting, that Councillor Brown might withdraw his motion or his proposal. Certainly, I would not vote in favour of it, because I think there are other ways to achieve similar goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, Councillor Tarr.
I'd just like to say I was in Norway a few years ago, and a Treasury official was talking to me about car parking charges. Councils in Norway can no, as the, I don't know, it's still the case, but they had free parking for electric cars. And of course, it reduced their income to zero, because nearly everybody uses the electric car to go parking. So they've got a serious income problem, nationwide. If you introduce rules like that, you're going to have no income after a few years. The change is happening more rapidly than we think. It will accelerate.
Thank you, Councillor Tarr. On to Councillor Starr.
Thank you, Chair. And Andrew Starr from Upton Litchett. I've got a slightly different take on this, in that I know it would be dependent on ANPR, but if you could charge vehicles by the size of the vehicle, if you do know that information from the number plate, purely the size of the vehicle, but apart from anything else, we're talking about car parking spaces, and these big vehicles take up more room apart from the pollution levels. But that would be something for the future. We wouldn't be able to do that without the NPR, I believe.
Councillor Andrews, that was a question. I know you were waving to respond.
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to clarify what Councillor Starr's just said. Emissions-based parking would not be on ANPR, the registration you put into the machine, because the machine can then connect with a database that tells you, a bit like when you put your thing in to look at your tyres on your, if you want to go and buy some tyres, you put in your registration number, they can access what car it is. So that's how they define what the car is, whether it's electrical or not, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's whatever. So that's how it would be identified. It's not required on ANPR, or the ANPR is not required.
Thank you for that clarity. Councillor, yeah, you happy? Next, I've got Councillor Gibson.
Thank you, Chair. I thought a lot of what you said made sense. It was a very good summary of mostly how I feel, which is, whilst I'm not completely against the need to make as much progress as we can on a whole range of things, if we're to meet our climate commitments, it needs to be lots of interventions. I do feel that this might be one of those ones that doesn't meet the test of what the public deemed to be particularly sensible. And as someone who did support the climate emergency and still fully understands the risks that we face, there is a certain amount of intervention that I feel undermines the bigger picture. And for me, this is one of those. We've talked in earlier papers today about measures that would substantially improve the carbon emissions via better buses, via better stuff like that. This is, I promise you, the longer this goes on, the more people it will annoy. And the more people it annoys, the more undermining it is to the bigger picture. It is a distraction to the wider parking thing, and it makes the council look as though it can't see anything other than climate. And we know that there are many other commitments that the council needs to take as seriously as the climate. So for me, I will support Piers' proposal if it goes to a vote, because I think there's much to like in the car park report. And this is just the one bit that I can't move past, because it doesn't meet this, for me, it doesn't meet the sense test about the best people to give a discount to. I think you made a really strong point about local residents. And I think if we were to develop that, you'd get a lot more thanks from residents. And I think ultimately we'll be better off for doing that. So I don't want to get too bogged down on a climate change thing, but the fact that we're having a debate specifically about it just shows how emotive the issue is. And actually, we've missed some of the really big points about parking if we only focus on this. So I think it's time to say we've considered all the options, not this time.
Thank you very much. Next, I've got Councillor Jesperson.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have to say I will also, on balance, support Councillor Brown's proposal here. Reducing emissions is really, really important, and transport contributes greatly to our emissions. But the way we should do that is by introducing better public transport and by making it easier for people to do active travel and supporting local services so people have to travel less far, making our high streets vibrant so that people don't have to have everything delivered by Amazon, as it increasingly feels like you do if you used to rely on some of our smaller market towns. That's the way to address that challenge. The problem with with penalising people who don't drive electric vehicles is the market for electric vehicles is a long way from being developed enough for us to justify a position like that, because buying and running an electric vehicle is significantly more expensive than buying a second-hand petrol car. And until that gap is much, much narrower, we are quite simply penalising people on lower incomes. And I would have to say the same thing about, just be careful where you're going with penalising people in large vehicles. That's all right if it's one of those great big Chelsea tractors. You don't see very many Chelsea tractors parked in the car parks in the towns that I use in North Dorset. When there's large vehicles, it's usually the works van, and there are lots of people in my ward whose only vehicle is their van because that's the kind of job they have. That's a large vehicle, but they're very far from being wealthy. Otherwise, they'd have another fancy car as well as the van. So let's just think this through from the point of view of the actual residents that we represent, who don't by and large have electric vehicles because by and large they can't yet afford them. And I think it would be, quite simply, I think it would be discriminatory against people on low incomes, and I really don't think that's where we intend to go with this policy. So let's focus on all the other ways of reducing emissions, but not this. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Councillor Brown then to wrap up and then ask for a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. I have a concern that people are going to start thinking that I am against Dorset doing its bit for the climate, and I want to reassure people that is not the case at all. And that is said to someone who is sitting in this council chamber which has no air conditioning in the middle of a heat wave. Like, I get it. We need to be doing our bit, but we need to take the public with us when we do, because the problem we as a country are having is that the climate debate is becoming more and more polarizing. And if we are asking people to make noticeable sacrifices to their life rather than just adapting the way that they live, if we're asking people to give things up, if we're asking them to be seen to do things that are considered unreasonable, then we're not going to get their buy-in, and they're going to push back. And you just have to look to other parts of the country where emissions-based charging and how controversial that has been to see the challenges. And while I'm a big believer that Councillor John Andrews must have done something wrong in a previous life to end up with the portfolio that he has been given, I don't wish that upon him, because he is a good and decent man. Just to mention Councillor Taylor's points in relation to Chelsea tractors, you're in my wheelhouse. I like cars, they're my vice. A Range Rover starts at 105 grand. A Porsche Taycan is an electric car, and that starts at 85 grand. So the point I'm trying to make is that if we're going to use push economics, if you've got a 105 grand Range Rover on the drive, another 20p an hour on the parking is probably not going to make too much difference in terms of picking where you choose to park. But if you're a self-employed builder, like Councillor Jesperson was talking about, where you're working 2 jobs, trying to put food on the table for you and your family, you want to try and do your bit locally. Actually, one of the best things that person can do is probably run their vehicle well maintained to the end of its life, instead of sinking all of the environmental damage into a brand new vehicle. Obama got criticised for talking about actually you can save 1% of traffic emissions in the United States by everyone having their tyres pumped up to the correct pressure. There are small things that we can do, and actually you can turn around to someone who is struggling to make ends meet and say you need to do better for the environment. They don't have that choice. So actually, let's get them supporting the local economy. Let's get jobs local. Let's buy food local. That's a big one. And let's take people with us. And Chair, I think you put it very, very well. Actually, the people that have the luxury to make decisions that are more environmentally conscious are not the ones that we're necessarily going to be able to influence through this particular policy. And every penny less that we take in car parking is one penny less that we can put towards subsidising public transport, which I would imagine is a pretty universally agreed upon aim for this council. From really rural wards like mine that have one bus service in them, would like to see more, I'd love to see a bus service that you can commute to work on in my ward, because at the moment they only take place during working hours through to places like Weymouth and Dorchester, where we know the demand for public transport is equally great. So I hope that people will be able to support the proposal in the hope and understanding that we all want to do the right thing by the environment, but this just isn't a mechanism that's going to be effective and will achieve what we're looking to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I think well summarised there. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Gibson. Thank you. Well, we have a proposal which is to exclude the recommendation of emissions-based parking from the policy at this stage. Proposed by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Gibson. Those in favour of the... We've just debated it. So we are moving forward just on that point at the moment before we summarise to the full recommendation. So at the moment, we are just discussing the exclusion of the recommendation that emissions-based parking is brought in at this point. Correct, Councillor Brown? So that's what, Councillor Northam, that's what we have just been discussing. So we are, Councillor Northam, we are saying that we do not support inclusion. So we're excluding that from our recommendation when we make our recommendation later. Councillor Brown, I've got that right, haven't I? Thank you. Councillor Gibson, you're happy with that clarification and still to second? Right, we have just discussed that. I think everyone here had the opportunity to speak on that particular point. We are going to move forward for the vote. Those in favour of exclusion of emissions-based parking? Have you got that, Anthony? Those against? One. And there should be no abstentions. So that will form now part of our recommendation. So we move back now to the full paper. I think we have had a lengthy discussion on that. Is there any other critical points that we need to discuss? If not, I shall try and summarise. And as always, please do help me out. So I believe from what we've said there now, we've just got that point that we do not support emissions-based parking at this time. We do support the upgrade of the machines to give us the intelligence to support resident reduced parking, as we feel that is more environmentally supportive, keeping people local, reducing the miles, and supporting our local businesses and high streets, of course. We want to see parking permits, residents' parking permits, more accessible and easier to pay via instalments with the new ERP system. We'd like to explore alternative use of some of our car parks in the quieter times, whether that be pop-up cinemas, markets, car booths, sporting activities, whatever we can use those, those spaces for in the quieter activities to support our communities and draw in income in different ways. We want to see the upgrade of the signage so that we don't have to use the physical signs and waste cost every time that we upgrade or change pricing. We want to have digital signage in our car parks. That means it's easier to change parking fees. And obviously better signage out of town on where your long stays are and where car parks are full to reduce the queues around towns looking for those parking spaces, again, which will have a positive impact on the environment. And I think last of all is, I think the message here is if we're paying for the use of these car parks, we want to see the improvement plan put in place, as Councillor Andrews said, tackling the worst ones year on year to actually, when people arrive, they're arriving to a pleasant time. It's not potholes, puddles. It can be green, there can be flower beds and well tarmac roads and well lined. So actually, when you first arrive in that town, it's a welcome impression. I believe that was brought up by Councillor Jesperson around the state of car parks. Was there any other points? Before Councillor Northam.
Chair, I agree with the summary generally. I'd just like to clarify the emissions-related statement. I think you said that we would not consider emissions-based charging. What we removed from the report was a statement which said this could include the introduction of emissions-based discounting. They're different. I'm happy, and what I'd like to ask the clerk is to clarify what the amendment actually says that we've just voted on.
Anthony, can you do that, please?
I wrote down that the Place and Resources Overview Committee resolved recommendations that emissions-based charging is removed from the actions and future strategic direction of parking and alternatives are considered.
Thank you. That makes it clear that what this committee has voted for is no emissions-based charging will be considered, whether it's for low emissions or high emissions. That's what we've just voted for. Thank you.
And I believe, just to clarify, we did say at this time. If a future review is needed, it can come back to overview. We can hash it out then. But at this time, in 5 years, 10 years' time, as prices come down, then or things change, then we can revisit it, can't we? But we're saying at this time, we do not believe that's it. We want the positive story about the positive impacts on car parking, and to tackle the environmental. I can see Councillor Bowden there. Bolden shaking her head, and to tackle reducing climate measures by different ways and alternative ways of parking, whether that be investing in our public transport, reducing miles travelled in other ways. Okay, before we go to that recommendation, as always, I'm going to hand over to the Cabinet holder to ask if there's any further points or anything else he wants us to look at.
No, thank you very much, Chair. No, I think it's been a really good debate. I think everybody's talked about all the subjects we were put before us. I hope all the members will have a look at the machines that we've got at the back because there's some really good technology there, and it could advance what we do in parking for the future. So thank you once again for the report. Mike and team, and Marion and co that put the report together. Thank you very much to IPS for coming in today and trying and showing us their machines. So I think it's been a really good and useful debate. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. We now move forward then to that recommendation. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Taylor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Crabb. All those in favour of the recommendation? That is carried unanimous. Thank you very much. At this point, before we move into our last paper, I'm going to suggest we have a 5-minute comfort break. So can I ask members to be sat back down at 12:15, 12:16, thereabouts. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, and welcome back to our meeting today of the Place and Resources Overview for Committee. Those just joining us now, my name is Councillor Ryan Hope. I am the chair of this committee, and my vice chair is Councillor Andrew Starr. We're going to continue now with the meeting on to item 8 of our agenda, which was a request to be put forward for us by the Cabinet holder, Councillor Richard Biggs, and that is our Dorset Local Visitor Economy Partnership Destination Management Plan. I don't see Richard here, so we're going to go straight forward to John Bird, who's the Service Manager for Economic Development and Skills, to introduce the paper, please, John.
Thank you, Chair and Councillors. Councillor Biggs is, I believe, at the Local Government Association conference today. So government reviewed destination management organisations a few years ago, and their conclusion... Sorry, am I too far from the microphone? Is that better? Okay. A few years ago, government reviewed destination management organisations and concluded there were too many of them and they were too fractured. So in future, they would only deal with local visitor economy partnerships. And there would be fewer of these. They would be bigger and they would have to meet certain standards. Dorset Council agreed at Cabinet in 2024 to form a Dorset Local Visitor Economy Partnership, and in 2025 government accepted the Dorset Local Visitor Economy Partnership to be established, and the secretariat for that is run by Dorset Tourism Association, which is a community interest company, and Dorset Council has representation on that through the Cabinet Member for Economy. And he is supported by officers from Economic Development and from Visit Dorset. A condition of all local visitor economy partnerships is to have a destination management plan. So Dorset Tourism Association commissioned engagement and consultation and the drafting of a plan. Several workshops were held across the county, and an online survey was also carried out. And there was significant response from town and parish councils, chambers of trade, business improvement districts, and businesses across Dorset. So I just want to stress that this is not a Dorset Council plan. It is a true partnership plan, and it has had significant engagement and consultation. The plan itself is essentially evolution, not revolution. It's not hugely different to things we'll have seen in the past, addressing the same challenges and opportunities that have been in Dorset Council, in the Dorset area for quite a long time. The 6 priorities of the plan are to address seasonality. All visitor economies suffer from a certain degree of seasonality, but the August peak is particularly strong in Dorset, and we've been working for years and years and years to boost the shoulder season and the off-season, and this continues with that aim. There is an aim to boost visitor spend, which dovetails very nicely with the Dorset Council plan ambition to boost visitor spend by 5% by 2030. Priority 3 is to increase and improve perceptions of Dorset Council. Sorry, not of Dorset Council, of Dorset. There are perceptions that Dorset has a lovely landscape and lovely seaside, but it also has sometimes quite a sort of old-fashioned image of what we have here. And we are trying to address that and focus also on the more modern tourism offer we have here. Priority 4 is around accessibility. There is social good in accessibility, but there is also a large revenue opportunity in making tourism more accessible. Priority 5 is sustainability, which again ties in very nicely with Dorset Council's ambitions for the climate and ecological emergency. And the final priority is around collaboration, that no one organisation on its own can do this, and we need to work together to efficiently and effectively improve the visitor offer. And all of this built on the quite extensive market segmentation research that was carried out in the previous year to target what types of market segments we've got in Dorset, which are big, which are small, and which have opportunities to boost and grow them. From an officer point of view, I think this is good for Dorset and good for Dorset Council.
Okay, thank you very much, John. First of all, as always, is there any non-committee members wishing to speak on this item? Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chairman. Just want to get some clarifications on a couple of things. So this Dorset Visitor Economy, the destinations, I looked through the report, page 141 in terms of the agenda page, because the report wasn't numbered, and it lists a whole series of the market towns that are in Dorset, but there's a couple that were missing, and one is Wareham, which is the gateway into the Purbeck, and the other one is my ward area, Wimble Minster. In East Dorset District Council area, the former District Council area, it's the only ancient historical market town within that district area, and it was known as the eating and drinking mecca of East Dorset, if I remember rightly. It's within 200 metres of the Cranbourne Chase National Landscape, so it's got quite a setting and a lot of historical aspects to the town in terms of its visitors that it attracts in. And the reason I'm going down this route is we did talk about doing a market town strategy some time ago, and I'm not exactly sure where we are with this and how that would feed into this report, because I think we need to understand our market towns and the way those high streets are, in a lot of the towns, are dying, and they're not as vibrant as they once were because retail has changed as we come out of COVID. So I think, for me, I just need to get an understanding around where are we with the strategic approach on our market towns and that piece of work. How will that then fit in with this piece of work? Because I think the two are symbiotic. We've talked about visitor economy in Dorset. Surely people are going to want to visit the market towns. And if the market towns are doing poorly economically and those high streets are dying, they're not going to attract those visitor numbers, which in turn is going to have an impact on the tourism trade within Dorset. So, sorry, Chairman, if I could just get an understanding around that, please.
Hopefully we can. John, any answer?
I think there were a couple of questions in there. One was about Wareham not being in the snapshot page there. I'm not up to speed on exactly where we are with the market town strategy, I'm afraid. I would have to go away and look at that question. I'm not clear, though, on how having the strategy would affect this partnership piece of work. I think it's a good and clear question for Dorset Council, but I'm not clear on how that would change a partnership piece of work.
Okay, Jan, have you got a comment there?
Thank you, Chair. Jan Britton, Executive Director for Economy and Environment. The work with, the economic work with market towns is very much bound up with the work we do with all town and parish councils. There's a lively discussion going on, particularly with town councils, about how Dorset Council can support town councils to produce economic plans for their town. It's very much seen as a partnership activity. I don't think it's intended that Dorset Council would sort of hand down to each town an economic plan for that town. That sort of thing is much better built from the community up. So we're seeing our role very much as supporting town councils to produce economic strategies, economic plans for their own town, with us providing a strategic umbrella and a raft of guidance and support for them to do that. So the forum that's being carried forward through is the regular meeting with town and parish councils and facilitated by the Dorset Association of Town and Parish Councils.
Okay, Councillor Bartlett, you want to come back?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah. So my question around that is, what is the input that's coming from ward members that are particularly associated with their ancient historical market towns? I'm not aware that I've been invited into any meetings around those discussions. So if the DAPTC and Dorset Council and the town council, and many of us sit on the town councils as well, I'm just a little bit confused as to why the ward members aren't involved in this process, or don't appear to be to me. And yet we said from the very outset when we set up this council authority that the ward members would be taking on every journey.
John, do you want to come back there?
In terms of who was involved in those things, we had representatives from Stallbridge, Gillingham, Shaftesbury, 2 councillors from Dorset Council, Dorchester, Weymouth, BCP in the physical workshops, and on the online surveys we had responses from Sturminster, Newton, Gillingham, Portland, Wimborne, Bedminster, Dorchester, Weymouth, Dorset and BCP councils. So the message certainly reached some parts. So I think there was opportunity for ward councillors to be involved, and I believe they were aware of it. No?
I'm going to try and steer us back here because I think we are slightly cross. I think what John's saying, during the review of this plan, it went out to every town and parish and partner in council to have their say, and some did via workshops or some did online. I think what Councillor Bartlett's talking to is back around this change of the market trans strategy now being implemented in a slightly different way that Jan Britton mentioned. I don't want to go down too much on that market strategy. I know it's close to your heart and a lot of the other market town ward members, but I want to focus more back on this strategy, but understanding that does dovetail into this around tourism and the work that's going there. But I think it's a separate piece of work that needs to be picked up in the discussion with the officers on actually how that's still being delivered. So that's something we might want to consider on a future work plan. Okay. The other non-committee member I had to speak was Councillor Borden.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a bit concerned that the sustainable tourism and all of the opportunities that our green economy and the new jobs coming in the Weymouth energy hub, for example, it's not embedded enough for my feeling. So an awful lot of visitors. So going back to when I was first elected to Lyme Regis Town Council in 2019, I was approached by someone in Swanage to ask about sustainability and environmental awareness, because they were picking up that a lot of visitors were bypassing Dorset altogether because Cornwall in particular, but also Devon, had a reputation for being environmentally friendly and welcoming, and that was what people wanted to do when they went on holiday. And so they embarked on a programme of, they dubbed themselves Sustainable Swanage, through a programme of looking at sustainable tourism. What does that actually mean? I think it was with Litter Free Coast and Sea working closely with them, because people do care. And we've talked about the uniqueness of our coastline and of all of our natural beauty. Dorset can show huge leadership here. We've got political stability for a few years in the sense that we can put our policies into practice. We can show leadership to the rest of the country because we're not generally hampered by people who are opposing our general direction. And I feel that this report kind of misses an opportunity to really highlight sustainability and sustainable tourism and what that actually means, because people out there do want it and they want us to be shown leadership on these matters. So that's my point. And businesses do definitely need help in becoming more sustainable, but we've got some global leaders in the area like Lush, and other products are available, but we do have really good opportunity to showcase all that we're doing to improve the environment and adapt to climate change and flooding and heat waves and all the rest of it. We should really make the most of that opportunity because people do value it and do want it.
Thank you very much for those points. I know that was echoed in our pre-meet. John, do you want to come back on any of those?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's worth mentioning the status of the destination management plan, that one of the first requirements of a local visitor economy partnership is to have a destination management plan. And the next step after this will be to come up with the 10-year action plan. So within the destination management plan, which is on Area 5, Priority 5, it does mention 3 recommended actions. So the first one of those is use local exemplars to showcase and inspire businesses to invest. Perhaps the inspiring businesses to invest part doesn't chime exactly with what you suggested, Councillor, but the use local exemplars to showcase is very much part of that. Signposting businesses to support available via the local visitor economy partnership. The key benefit really of having the local visitor economy partnership is that we get access to government support, training and such like as well, which may help. And then the other suggested recommendation is to utilise Visit England expertise to support. And again, a lot of Visit England's resources are about improving sustainability and improving inclusion and accessibility. So it will give us access to that. So I think your comments are very much pushing on an open door in regards to what should end up in an action plan.
Yeah, I think we very much hear the message there that we need to probably focus a little bit more. There's more that can be done, and I think you recognise that it's touched on within the strategy, but where we need to actually see the proof in the pudding when we start to see the action plan come through. So yeah. Any more non-committee members? I'm just checking online. Don't think so. We're going to move forward then on to committee members. I will just point out to members that we are now at 12:34, so we will have to vote to extend the meeting at 1 o'clock unless we do finish this item. I don't want to rush it. I want to give it the airtime and the overview that it deserves. But do just bear that in mind when speaking. If we can avoid repetition, then we may be able to finish on time. Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, St Mary Ward, and also Dorset Town Council. My history on this is pretty powerful because the fact is we all remember the tourist information centres and the disaster we had. We closed most of those down, and what went forward was a complete mismatch with tourism across Dorchester and Dorset. Coming back to the comment made by Councillor Bolden, sorry, I do apologise, and Councillor Bartlett, the fact that there are 82 of us in the council actually elected, and we do represent our county very highly on the fact is what is in our tourism industry, and we should be utilised. Pitting little bits of Dorset is not good enough. It should be across the board picture to what actually we've been involved in. We should all be totally involved in this, because at the end of the day, the economy of Dorset, it's all on tourism. Absolutely. I know we've got major businesses here, but the majority of our industry in Dorset is tourism, so we should be on board with it. The reason I'm saying this, we've had various pieces going at and going by the wayside. We did have a History and Heritage Quarter in Dorchester, which is now defunct. We've got major problems with museums and various enterprises across Dorset because they can't afford to stay open. We've also got the fact of the economy being driven for the shops and the people coming to Dorset to stay, camp, enjoy, taking its history. Coastal Path, we are UNESCO, Jurassic Coastline, you name it, we've got it down here. And we should be utilising it 100%. But I always stated, and I did go on the rallies on this, the Tourist Information Centre should be brought back, or the model of it brought back into the feature across Dorset to be used, because Bridport seems to be doing very, very well, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I think they all noted those points, Councillor Taylor. Next, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Piers-Brown, I represent the Cranbourne Chase ward, which, as we know, is the most beautiful ward in Dorset. Now, the reason I mention that specifically is there is a general sense of unease when it comes to tourism around the marketing that's done for the rural part of the county. A lot of the marketing for tourism to Dorset focuses on the coast and the coastal offer, which, don't get me wrong, the Jurassic Coast and everything that it has to offer is fantastic and is certainly a reason to come visit Dorset. But actually, some of our countryside is the best in the world. And, you know, I'm sure it's the same with all of us. We may find ourselves going on holiday, but when you come home to Dorset, you just realise just how lucky we are. So I'd really like to stress that we need to make sure that we have parity in the activities, particularly in the section in marketing, between coastal and countryside, effectively. Particularly if you look at right at the top of North Dorset, somewhere like Gillingham and Shaftesbury or Sherborne, we know that Cornwall has done very well in attracting people for a long weekend down from London. Well, they're going to have to stop somewhere. So can we get them to stop in Sherborne or in Shaftesbury, just off the 303? And even if they're visiting then for just the day, that's additional spend into those communities. The general management plan, I don't think there's anything in there that people are going to disagree with. Like everything, if it ends up being sat on a shelf collecting dust, it's the action plan that comes in behind it, where the value is going to be delivered. And I look forward in due course to us receiving a copy of that. And I'd just like to, I guess, strengthen and make you more bold on the events portion of the plan. I think there was 68% of your partners said that more events could be a really good at increasing the shoulder seasons, because that's where the opportunities lie, as you've highlighted. Like, I'm teaching you to suck eggs. And Dorset has some great events already for a mixture of people. It also allows us to diversify the tourists that come to our county. Disclosure, we run an events company, so a little bit of skin in the game here, but the Tank Museum, which is the largest indoor tourist attraction in Dorset, has Tank Fest. That's 10,000 people a day for 3 days over a long weekend coming to talk all things tanks. And that is one of the biggest gatherings of tank enthusiasts in the world. They ship tanks across the world to go on display just for that weekend, because that's part of the offer, and that's how popular that event is. And I think if we look at the way that consumers are spending money, particularly the younger sort of the millennial and the Gen Z sort of demographics, it's less about materialistic goods, it's more on experiences. I think that's a byproduct of social media, but that is where they're driving the value. And I guess the last example that I would give, I warned you earlier, Chair, I'm a fan of motor cars. There's a relevance to this, so bear with me. Does anyone know why the Las Vegas Grand Prix is on the weekend before Thanksgiving? It's because, historically, that was the worst performing weekend in Las Vegas. So it's the only weekend they could convince them to close the Strip. It is now the most profitable weekend for Las Vegas. I'm not expecting you to get a Grand Prix, if you did. But the use of events and getting that offer right can be really, really good. We are well placed. We are close to wealthy demographics around the country, and we should exploit that. So I look forward to seeing the action plan in due course.
Thank you very much. I don't think we can stretch for a Grand Prix, but there's a few empty car parks, maybe a go-kart track. Exactly. Moving on to Councillor Northam.
Thank you, Chair. It's nice to see everybody so passionate about their areas. I'm not going to break that trend. I'm passionate about Weymouth, and I'd like to draw attention to slide 5 in the Dorset Visitors Economy Pack. While you're looking at that, I think the push for the DMP is really important. It enables us to access the government on a range of things, and as has been said, the action plan is what really matters. But slide 5 is a bit of a signpost for Dorset's visitor economy, and I'm disappointed that Weymouth has been reduced to Weymouth has an award-winning beach. It then says adjacent. Oh, so we're adjacent to something. That's quite useful. Okay. So I'd like to suggest that there are 3 big aspects for Weymouth. The heritage aspects of Weymouth, with a large number of listed buildings. Knowth Fort is a heritage site in itself, and it's also one of the biggest visitor attractions in Weymouth. It doesn't get a mention. The whole of the Victorian seafront, which is partly owned by the council, is a visitor attraction. The historic harbour side is about heritage, as well as food and the rest of it. So heritage and culture are a really important aspect. I don't think get enough attention for Weymouth in this statement. And the other bit that makes Weymouth quite unique is the actual environment. We sit in part of Dorset with 5 SSSIs, 2 of which are active bird reserves within the town boundary. That's quite unusual for a town of our size, 50,000 people. And just going back to that first statement, Weymouth has an award-winning beach. Weymouth has a number of award-winning beaches. The town beach is the Blue Flag Beach. We also win awards for the parks and gardens, which are big tourist attractions. We win green flags, and I can't remember what the purple flag is, but I think it's for a vibrant evening economy. We haven't got it at the moment, but we've had it in the past. So I just would like to see Weymouth having a little bit more made about it when you compare what's written about Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, and so on. And I think Portland itself also needs a bit more. It's got a vibrant arts scene, unique geology, and is a port for cruise ships. You can say some of that's in there, but it's actually what brings the cruise ships don't bring people, apart from in the cruise ships, to Portland. What brings the visitors into Portland largely is the other things that go on there relating to the unique geology of the island. So I just feel I'd ask you to look again at that summary, because that's going to be the page which lots of people look at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think those points are noted. Have I got anyone else? Councillor Gibson.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Gibson, then Jesperson, unless you're still there.
I am still here, yes.
You go first.
Who would you like first? All right. Thank you. Good. Okay. Well, first of all, I very much welcome this destination management plan. It's part of it's the next step in firming up our tourism economy and putting it on a stronger footing. And I think it's an extremely good report in so far as it goes, because as I say, it is just a next step. The important point, of course, the important report is going to be the action plan that follows. You mentioned, I think that the officer mentioned very early on that this is evolutionary, not revolutionary, and you're absolutely right in that. I recognise almost everything that was in this report from the days when I held the tourism portfolio as part of the economic development portfolio back at North Dorset. And these were exactly the same issues that we were discussing then. And they are familiar, and they don't get any easier, it has to be said. I think there are 2 particular challenges that I think I don't see necessarily reflected here that we need to be aware of. The first is that so many of our tourism and hospitality businesses in the north and the rural west of the county, in other words, in the area north of the Smile, the seaside parts of the county, are micro businesses and small family businesses, couples running a business, and many of them are diversification from other businesses, such as most notably, of course, farming. And so it's very difficult for people who are running really, really important parts of their business to have the time and the resource and the energy, it has to be said, if you're running a hospitality business alongside of a farm, to grow that business. And they do need help and they need support, because those are the businesses that are bringing in a very significant amount of the visitor spend into rural North Dorset. But so the second kind of challenge, I think, and this was touched on very early on by Councillor Bartlett, indeed, with our market towns. I think many of our market towns might have struggled to contribute to this report because their hospitality and their tourism business has fallen on very, very hard times. I'm not talking about the thriving towns such as Beaminster and so on, but there are towns such as Blandford. Blandford didn't get a mention in here at all, like Wimble, and that's because they weren't able to contribute to this report, probably because they simply don't have anybody there who's still in the tourism business. My experience working with the market towns across North Dorset on the Thomas Hardy in North Dorset Centenary programme, which we are putting together. There is a group of Dorset towns putting that together, is that the town councils are very, very willing to do this, but town councils have got lots of other things to do, and they really struggle to have the resource to contribute to this. So I think there is an issue there, not that the town councils don't want to get involved in tourism, but that's not they're in the business of being town councillors, not in the business of running tourism businesses. So we need to get to help the town councils get beyond their own small group out to their actual businesses to see what they can contribute to this, because the market towns tourism is absolutely crucial to our market town strategy, but they are also crucial to the success of our tourism strategy going forward. I mean, I think it's very noticeable in this report, and this is absolutely not a criticism, but when you look at the SWOT analysis in this report, the opportunities box is by far if I can say, the weakest. Most of it is about Dorset Council's processes rather than opportunities that would resonate with the kind of businesses in the part of Dorset that I look after. And I think that, and as I said, that's not a criticism of the report. I think that reflects the reality that it's very hard out of all of this to winkle out new opportunities for tourism, and that I think is the great challenge. And I think when we come to write the action plan, that's what this needs to focus on, is what are we going to do that adds value, that takes the tourism sector in the rural north to new heights. And again, Piers, Councillor Brown touched on the whole question of the marketing. Now, I've been discussing marketing of rural tourism for more than 10 years with local businesses in North Dorset, and indeed work very, very closely with Visit Dorset, who I must say make a superb contribution when they can to our local businesses. But it's very difficult for these small and micro tourism businesses to get involved with Visit Dorset because it costs them money, and they just don't have that little extra margin. So Visit Dorset is superb, but it's not for the very smallest businesses. And we need to go back to that opportunities box, if I may say so, and perhaps work a bit harder to see where the opportunities are, because they are there. And I would just say to some comfort to Councillor Borden there about the ecotourism. Ecotourism is very, very big in the north of Dorset, and I think we are establishing a reputation for ecotourism and also for well-being tourism, if I can put it that way. And I think that you're absolutely right. We need to make more of this. We need to establish the reputation for Dorset for being special in that regard. One of the things I used to quote back along when this was first my portfolio 10 years ago is to say there was a time when places like the Bronte country or the parts of Yorkshire that were famous for all creatures great and small and all that, they weren't famous for anything. It was only the marketing that gave them a USP, and we need to find USPs.
Sorry, I don't want to interject, but we are now at 5 minutes to 1.
All right, I will stop there, but I would just say that I welcome this report, but the action plan is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting in this one. Thank you.
So before I ask John just to come back on a couple of those points, because I know he wants to, and there was a lot there to digest. Members, we need to extend the meeting to finish this rather than coming back. It's getting very warm in this chamber now as it's at the midday point. Can I propose that we try and finish in 15 minutes? We're happy to extend to 1:15. All those in favour? Yeah, that's carried. Right, so we've got 20 minutes to try and summarise this item. John, do you want to try and answer some of Councillor Jesperson's points there?
Yes, it's delightful to have someone with such experience of not just the councillor's patch, but also the tourism industry and the challenges and the opportunities available. Our recent market segmentation work very much mirrored what was said there. Nature and culture and active and mindful were the two target groups with the most potential for growth, which very much fits that message. We are doing what we can and continue to build on it. I must just mention that the recent Visit Dorset campaign called A World Less Travel has had 5.8 million views on YouTube and other social media channels. So we're punching fairly hard at the moment. But that's a slight digression from the actual destination management plan. I do completely agree that it's the action plan that is key. But if I could just draw attention to towards the end of the document, it does mention a couple of the KPIs, and one of the KPIs in there is to increase visitors to North and West Dorset. It is outlined in there.
Thank you, John. Right, moving on, I've got Councillor Tarr.
I'm Roland Tarr. I represent 12 parishes between Dorset and Weymouth, and between Harley Monument and Tinkleton. And we've got Maiden Castle there, which is visited by people from all over the world looking at archaeology. Dorset, as you saw in the picture of Councillor Jesperson speaking, Hillfort's ward, ancient monuments galore, very little emphasis on those. I came here in 1974 to set up the Heritage Coasts and stayed for 15 years with Dorset County Council working on that, and that then transmuted into the Jurassic Coast international recognition. I was asked to go all over Europe to talk about what Dorset was doing. We were leading the field with what then became the World Heritage Site, probably partly as a result of the fact. And we said what we were doing and how we were doing it. But my continuous criticism from the inland parishes and towns was all the emphasis is going to the coast. People already come to the coast. They should be coming inland. So I think we've said that now. And the description of the county, I think it says, Dorset has a strong visitor offer. The snapshot of the Dorset visitor economy highlights the importance. And then I don't recognise any of the statements made there about any of the towns. They miss out on the historic heritage. They miss out on the wildlife. And we are buying areas to train wildlife, and we're not spending enough time opening them to the public and encouraging people to go to them. We don't have staff there to do that. We don't have any publicity. But I was asking about cycling in one of the nature reserves. Oh, we don't like that because it might frighten the birds. You know, there's no policy about that. We do need to get inland and historic interest and wildlife interest. People come all the year round to walk the coast path. They come all the year round to walk the major paths across Dorset. They come all the year round to watch birds in Weymouth. Weymouth would be dead if we depended on the beach. It's a 12-week season. It's appalling. There's no future in that sort. It's an added thing, but it should have an all-year-round appeal from Christmas to Easter right through the year.
Thank you, Richard. Roland, I think we've captured that. We need to look at some of the descriptive comments around some of the areas in the plan already. I do have to apologise, Councillor Gibson, because you gave way to Councillor Jesperson and then I brought Councillor Tarr in. So over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Simon Gibson from Verwood. I previously did have the tourism part as part of my portfolio when we began the LVEP process, and I think given that we've gone through that process, which was exactly the right thing to do, so that we had enough clout with government to be able to be taken seriously, we have to do a destination management plan, as John has said, and I think this is a very good one. I like it, and I don't think at this stage we should be getting too narrow on what is and what isn't in the plan. We personally know what's brilliant about Dorset, but the real question is there a hook in the destination management plan that would allow you to advocate for your area, either as a ward councillor or as maybe a town or a parish council? And I think in general that there is. I particularly appreciate the inclusion of growing the off-peak and growing the focus on growing visitor spend rather than visitor numbers. What I really don't want to see is Dorset overwhelmed at certain times by low spending, high volume numbers of tourists, because that creates a problem and doesn't actually benefit our economy. So I think it's got the right focus. I'm agreeable with it. I personally would have liked to have seen a very specific focus on trying to spread it county-wide. I know it's implicit in various bits in there. I've got no trouble endorsing this, because it's not just our plan, it's BCP, it's all of the, it covers a range of things. But for me, one of the bits of the discussion that often gets missed out, rather than focusing on the geography, whether it's north or south or east or west, if we're really serious about growing the off-peak, Dorset as a whole will need to do much better at its wet weather offer. Almost everything that people say requires good weather. And when I had the privilege of trying to progress some of the work in Weymouth for levelling up, it's really, really clear that if we rely on our natural environment alone, we're missing a big trick. And I think within the Dorset Council area, we're not as good as perhaps the BCP part of this plan, which is much, much better set up for all round, all year weather. So for me, I'm more than happy to endorse it, but as the action plan comes back, I would love to see a little bit more of a focus on the wet weather side of it, because I don't think you can truly grow the off-peak too much if you don't focus on it.
No, again, I think some valid points there that we need to consider when developing the plan. Next, we've got Councillor Starr.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to reiterate my support for what Councillor Bolden said about the wildlife. I think ecotourism is a very big thing coming up, and it's one of the great things about it is it concentrates largely on the shoulder months, so people don't really necessarily want to come here midsummer, so it's fantastic. So, but that's, and I'm glad to see that in the opportunities, the nature and culture are the top of the list. I just say one more thing, Chair. You made an ironic comment about go-kart track here. We have got a go-kart track here, a really, really good one, where many a world champion cut his teeth, and we've just given planning permission to put a mobile home park on it. So there you go. That's just ironic. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Councillor Tarrant, and that's a valid point made, isn't it? It's sad to see. Before we finalise, just I've got a couple of questions myself, if I can, John. So, again, I think very aspirational plan. I'm personally happy to see that you've liaised with partners while joining this up, whether it be towns, parishes, the cultural sector, the heritage sector, museums, improvement districts. I think it's a collaborative plan that's been driven by the community, and now as councillors we're here to oversee it, give our views and our opinions as those that are involved before it moves on its way forward. I think it's a very aspirational plan, and I think we agree with it. It finds the line very much with the other two comments we made here. We want to fill our car parks up in the winter. We want to extend the revenue that's coming from them. We want to make our public transport more viable with visitors here in the winter. So I think the points that Councillor Gibson made again today around extending the season, the wet weather activities in its own will extend the season because it's normally wet and cold come October, November, all the way through till now when it's too warm. But I think, that's got to be a key takeaway from that. A couple of questions, though. Very yes or no, two-word response. Number one, the Visit Dorset, who are going to oversee this piece of work under your team, got enough staff, got enough funding to actually deliver a very aspirational and needed plan?
If I can just clarify, it will be the Dorset Tourism Association who are overseeing this, not us, but we are the accountable body, and Visit Dorset is the accountable body. Visit Dorset itself brings in about £100,000 a year in membership fees because Dorset businesses pay essentially for marketing and advertising on the website. And Dorset Council provide about £200,000 a year, and the budget is under incredible pressure. One of our holiday parks pays more in business rates than the entire budget we spend on, one of our holiday park businesses, because they have more than one holiday park, pays more in business rates than we spend on tourism across the whole area. So it is a very, very tight situation. I'm not in a position to say we should take money away from social care to spend it on the visitor economy. That's not my place, but it is under incredible pressure.
I take that you need more money. Okay. And again, that's going to be part of our recommendation, I think going forward to Cabinet. We've got to look at that budget line. I think we've all stressed this evening, it dovetails into the other thing, that we get people on the public transport, we get people in the car park, it'll pay for itself, won't it, at the end of the day? So I think that's got to be part of our recommendation, that we request that the Cabinet and the portfolio holder does look at that budget line as part of the budget recommendations next year, because it's important if we want to see a growth in our tourism sector, no matter which sector it is and how we do it. We've got to play our part a little bit more, give the capability to go out and try and get more members and support members that can't afford the full rates as well. And that needs to be part of it. But other than that, no, I'm pleased. Again, it's very much a strategy that's been led by our partners. And by partners, I mean those in the business and in the sector and those delivering it. They're the experts. This is what they're telling us, and I'm pleased to see that. Take on board the comments earlier by Councillor Bartlett that we need to look at that market town strategy as a dovetail to this, and I think that's a conversation to go offline with the relevant directors and portfolio holders, and we look forward to seeing that piece of work come through this committee later on. Councillor Taylor, if there's a new point, I'm going to let you come in, but be very quick because I want to try and sum up.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor David Taylor, Chancellor St Mary. Just to mention the point about the ward councillors just been looking over their ward, there is actually a lot of passion and knowledge within ward councillors across Dorset. For example, the fact is I do the talks of Hidden Dorchester, and I was responsible with it, help with the fundraising of Dorset County Museum, and John Constantine, which you've mentioned earlier from Lush Products, was a very important investor in our county. So there is a road of going for businesses across Dorset, looking at those to help us with our quest, which they could do as being financial benefactor helpers. The other thing as well is that local parties and involvements regarding talks and tours, this, that, and the other, there is a possible free word of getting across Dorset our message. So the fact of using our collaborative organisations to actually stating it out there on the voice to say what's good for Dorset, all of Dorset, not just now. So there's an important communication angle. What you've just said is that it's that opening up the doorways of all people and businesses. And of course, Julian Fellows, he's doing a lot for us as well. So there you are. There are important people who could actually help us all the way through. Thank you, Chair.
That was very quick. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I think we got the gist of it there. And just to clarify, I don't think Councillor Gibson was saying members stick to their own ward and promote that. What he's saying is if each member promoted something special about their own ward, so he's not saying you're not allowed to go at Verwood and promote something there. Okay, right. We're going to try and move forward that recommendation. So I feel that the committee is the point, first of all, that we part of the recommendation, we need to look at that budget line for Visit Dorset. If this is going to be delivered anywhere towards the level of the aspirations in this plan, we need to be looking to support that further through the council's budget. But we endorse it. We need to look at the descriptions around some of the town and their offerings a little bit more. I think everyone picked up something more than that, what's written in there. Was there any other points that made really during this? No, I think, again, we just recognise the importance of tourism and we're keen to see it grow and agree with the KPIs. All year tourism, absolutely, and all weather. Do I have a proposer? Councillor Gibson. Councillor Taylor seconding. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Move forward then, item 9, which is the draft Place and Resources Overview Committee Work Plan. Anthony, anything to comment?
We can try and bring in the market town strategy as a work programming session. I'll try and set that up in the meantime ahead of the next meeting so we can bring that back.
Thank you very much. And of course, a couple of keys of work discussed today around these strategic actual plans that start to be developed and that market strategy that we look forward to seeing on our agenda at some point as well. If there's no comments on that draft, place and resource item 9, we'll move forward to item 10, urgent items, and there is no urgent items. And a very warm 7 minutes past 1 in the council chamber today, I close the meeting and thank everyone for their participation and attendance. Thank you.